All righty. So it is now 7:00 p.m. on July 21st, 2022. I will call this meeting to order for the Deep River Planning and Zoning Commission. Go through the roll call. Mike Danello.
Present.
Ready? Fred Jordan.
Present.
Fantastic. Jonathan Kastner. I didn't see him. Alan Faraday.
Here.
Stan Reinheimer.
Here, sir.
Oh, he served me.
Yeah.
Sharon Stay.
Here.
Alex Strobel.
Here.
And Christy Stroud. All right. Mike, I'll seat you for Jonathan, and Fred, I'll seat you for Christy. On to item 3, open the public hearing. Let's see. Item A on the agenda is special permit for conversion of an existing barn into 600 square feet commercial space for 11 Union Street. Applicant Jenny Maneri. She actually sent a request to continue this to August of next month, August 18th. John, do we actually need a motion for that, or just because she put the request in, we just do it?
Yeah, no, I would say let's have a motion just so it's official.
Okay, motion to continue to August 18th, 2022.
So
Second.
moved.
Marion beat somebody.
Second.
Thank you, Fred. Mike?
Yes.
And Jonathan's out. Let me cross his name out. Alan? Alan? Alan's left the building. Stan? Oh, there we go.
Yes.
And Alex?
Yes.
All right. On to item B, text amendment application to add definitions for cannabis establishments under section 2.4C. Add cannabis established to sections 4.29 through 4.31. Districts and schedule of uses and special permit use, and to add uses related, standards for cannabis retail stores and cannabis cultivators under section 7B. Additional and special standards specific for uses. Applicant Deep River Planning and Zoning Commission, and this is continued from the June meeting and the May meeting before that. Just so you guys are aware, we are out of time on this one, so we actually have to close the public hearing and vote. We'll vote later on about it, whichever way that may be. So I don't see any new information that came in, but I'm just gonna reach out. Is there any? Go ahead, John.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Later this afternoon, Nancy emailed a letter from her husband. I put that in testimony.
I actually forwarded it to everybody on the commission too, so
Oh, okay, great. So that's so for the record, that was submitted.
forgot. Yep, you're right. I forgot about that guy. Would that
Well,
be
I never got that letter, Tony.
no?
No.
It's my brother.
Okay.
Sorry. Okay.
Just to clarify, that's okay. Thank you.
All right. So I'm just gonna read it then, if Mike missed out on this. So July 21st, 2022, Anthony Baldock, Chairman, Planning and Zoning Commission, 174 Main Street, Deep River, Connecticut, 06417, regarding cannabis regulation proposal. Dear Mr. Baldock, as a resident of Deep River at 414 Main Street, I have many concerns regarding the proposal for allowing cannabis establishments in the Turnpike Industrial District. Our property is the first property in the residential zone on the west side of Main Street, heading north on Main Street and Kelsey Hill Road. Residentially zoned properties across the street at 423 Main Street and Georgetown Woods are adjacent to the Turnpike Industrial Zone land at 411 Main Street. This property is directly across the street from our house. The map included in the proposed regulation amendment shows that the portion of this property between the railroad tracks and Main Street is excluded from all types of cannabis establishments. If this proposal is passed, I would strongly encourage that this section of property remain excluded since it is surrounded by residential zones on 3 sides. Next paragraph. Any reference to adjacent properties when considering any potential effects from a proposal or use should always include properties across the street due to visibility on the street line. Section B, 7B 34.2 states that no cannabis retail store shall be located on a parcel abutting a residential zone. And yet the Turnpike Industrial Zone land east of the railroad tracks that allows for retail usage is adjacent to the residential property at 423 Main Street, west of the tracks. Potentially, there could be a retail facility behind the existing house. Why would this area be allowed for retail usage under the proposed regulation? Under the regulation proposed, cultivation would be allowed on the parcel that abuts our southern property line and retail establishments only a short distance further south. I do not know the exact measurement, but the adjacent parcel is narrow in width. Section 7B.343CB for retail states that odor monitoring and mitigation be required to demonstrate that odor and fumes will be substantially removed from air prior to being vented from the building. However, section 7B.35.3B 4 for cultivators and micro cultivators only allow for odor monitoring and mitigation. The detailed language should be the same in each instance. We are concerned that any odor that is released will be directed onto our property by prevailing winds. Also, what regulations are in place to control constant noise that can be caused by a ventilator or blower from those establishments? Periodic noise from the industrial park is already sometimes an issue. Noise, odor, and potential for increased lighting are not restricted across the property lines. I also believe more input should be requested from the residents who may not be aware of this proposal, perhaps by mailing to all residents. Please take this into consideration. Based on those concerns and the potentials for direct impact to our property and the entrance to our town, I urge the commission to not allow any type of cannabis establishment in the Turnpike Industrial District. Thank you sincerely, David Howard.
Thanks for reading that, Tony.
No problem. Okay. With that being said, I was going to open this up to the public. If would appreciate a raise of hands. If you're having trouble with that, just jump in and we'll sort it out.
If for people who are looking for the raised hand function, it's at the bottom of your toolbar under reactions. If you click the reactions tab, raise hand, it comes right up.
All right. I'm not seeing any. Oh, Daniel Smith.
But in June, wasn't it outlined that it's not really all the industrial district? There was like a sub color that was already away from all the residentials. Am I remembering that wrong?
You are. So the blue is for retail establishments in the Turnpike Industrial. So this the purple is the Turnpike Industrial. The blue outline would be only for retail establishments, and anything within the red would be for micro cultivators.
Oh, I see. So that letter is stating that up there on that portion of Maine that there's residential there, and so that's touching. So that, okay, I see what they're saying now.
Yeah. But the railroad tracks do run through here, so.
Am I mic'd? Where is the Howard property? Is it the one with the two ponds?
Yes,
Okay.
I did a little research to piggyback on this. The property line from here to the home on this property is 750 feet.
It still
I'm
abuts their
confused.
property though.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So that he said, I think in back of him, he was concerned about something being in back of him. And that's a residential zone. I'm questioning it. It looks like it's a residential zone.
Oh, so this parcel here is residential.
Yes.
Then there's the railroad tracks. Then
Right.
this could be retail.
Okay, but he's not there. He's across the street.
Correct.
Okay. I do see that though.
I thought I saw another hand go up. All right. Anybody else from the public wish to speak in favor, against, questions? All right, can we go one more time? Anybody else or anybody from the public in favor or against? Want to stay neutral, just comments or questions? All right. Anybody from the commission? And this isn't concerning the vote. This is just, or if you're looking for more input or.
No,
Yep.
well, let Stan go first, then I'll talk to Tony.
Okay.
I tried to look into it before, but the property that we're looking at right now, across the backside of the railroad tracks, wasn't there something shot down before?
Oh, here.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was, what the hell was he gonna do? It's the guy that, he does the paving. I can't remember, his name escapes me at the moment.
Sullivan.
Sullivan, thank you. They were gonna do something, but I don't think he could cross the tracks or. Fred's the train guy. He's gonna have to refresh me on this one.
Well, I'm going to say that if there's an increase in business over that private crossing, that the state, and I can't speak for the steam train, and I won't, but the state may have some issues over an increased density, because originally that's certainly not set up for retail.
Right.
I mean, as it is, I know, just speaking for myself, that, having the gymnastics place in there and the mommies just looking on their phone and driving across the tracks can be a little scary.
So from our standpoint, somebody could approach us and say they want to do something there. The hurdles that they have to go through for the state and the railroad is, that's their own issue.
But the fact that there's a kids facility there may have an issue.
That's this parcel. And so that's across the railroad tracks. Anybody else from the commission? All right.
Tony, I just have a quick question. I mean,
Fire.
go ahead. All right.
No, go ahead. You're ready to go.
I'm just looking at one of the zoning regulations that Clinton put in place, and it's section 148B, which zoning regulations, we're kind of going, I want to give the people all of the options. We seem to be coming up with two options, either retail or micro grower, or one of each. Looking at Clinton's, and they seem to have a third option, which was zoning regulations may prohibit cannabis establishments, establish reasonable restrictions on the hours and signage, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So is the public aware that they can have those options?
So they are. I'm just going to jump back in on this. So I know it's not every person in town, but we do have 400 people that were in favor of it. It's been in the newspaper. It's been allowed for over a year. It's been on planning and zoning since we put a moratorium in place. We've had 3 public hearings. It's been before the Board of Selectmen, the EDC, and whoever you guys have talked to in town. It's been in the quarterly magazine that comes around, the newspaper. Like I said, I've likened this to the floating zone thing. There was no advertisement for that, and 1,000 people showed up. If this town is concerned, my opinion is that they're going to show up and tell you so. This regulation doesn't just give them carte blanche. It would allow them to come back in with an application, and it would require a public hearing. So again, the public would be notified of that.
And at that point, if it passes and it gets to that point, Tony, what's the possible outcome of a public hearing? Can at that point the public say no?
Yeah, that's what happened with the floating zones.
But to be clear, Tony,
Yeah.
the public can say no, but they don't get a vote.
They don't get a vote. But so yes,
It's an action of the Planning and Zoning Commission, which is a vote of the commissioners. It's not a referendum.
Right.
But the public does have a voice.
Correct. And, I mean, if enough people showed up, you're not gonna go, okay, this is fine, even though there's, all 4,800 people saying no.
Tony, can I add something?
Please.
Recently, and the public has been quote unquote notified.
Mhm.
But I went through this with the rumble strips in front of my house, where initially when they ran them past my house, they just ran it through the selectman's office, and now I live with constant noise. So they had a quote unquote public hearing that was a really, in my opinion, a farce. It was advertised in the New Haven Register, which I don't know anyone that gets the New Haven Register. And so they would have no way of knowing that this public hearing was there and subsequently there was this very awkward program set up. To make a long story short, I think that even though there were 400 people that were in favor of this, the majority of the people, how many of those 400 even knew what the limitations are to the tax money that we're allowed to receive and the strings that are tied to it, that we can't even use it for our school education, but all of the other restrictions that are on that, and it's a very small amount of money. My personal opinion is no, we don't need it anyway. The recent problem we had with a person with chemical addictions or alcohol addictions in the town that put us on Inside Edition leads me to think that we don't really need to promote any more substance abuse in our town. The whole thing was blown way out of proportion, but that being said, do we really want to attract a whole bunch of folks that are coming in for intoxicating substances? Let some other town deal with it. We were on Inside Edition. And it probably went worldwide, let alone nationwide. I wouldn't be surprised. And so to encourage this, let some other town try it out. We can always change our minds. We can always say, yeah, okay, it's working out there. But, I've spoken to people that have lived in Colorado, and it's not all roses out there either.
No, you're right. The same could be said about the package store. Mike has to deal with that on a daily basis.
And what
There's
percentage?
No perfect world.
The 400 people that responded maybe have a vested interest, but what's the population of the town of Deep River? How's that represent a cross section of the town? I'd say the majority of the people didn't really have an opportunity to participate, nor did they have the information that many of us have read.
Okay. Not every person in town turned out to vote for the presidency, and it was one of the most contentious I've ever seen. Unless you drag these people out of their homes, I don't know what else we can do here. It's been in the paper nonstop, and not the New Haven Register, it's in the local paper. Like I said, it went in the quarterly news book that we get.
I kind of think that when there's big things like this, that we almost ought to require a townwide mailing to taxpayers, because it's the only way we're going to get information out. Nobody gets a newspaper anymore. I haven't gotten the Hartford Current in years. And the local rag doesn't participate in any town functions to speak of. Maybe with the new editor that'll change.
Okay. All right. Anybody else from the commission?
Tony, just one quick question, clarification on that, crossing over into that industrial park. The state owns that railroad track, correct?
Yes, and they lease it to Valley Railroad. Jeez.
Okay. So a quick question to John. John, what do you know offhand what some of the implications are of a changing a limited access railroad crossing to a retail area? Is that a challenge?
I'm not sure what you mean by the question.
Well, say if that area to the right to the east of Main Street, east of the railroad tracks. Yes, Tony, thank you. If that area becomes more of a retail mecca, would the state require a whole new form of railroad crossing there?
Tony would probably know better than I would, but it depends on probably the proposed traffic count and the width and type of the crossing. this is not directly analogous, but I know we're in Essex, we're building some sidewalks along Route 154 that will cross the tracks. And the state is actually requiring us to put a pedestrian gate
Oh, yeah.
at the tracks. So yes, I would say, I mean, if there was some sort of physical improvement to that crossing that, you know, the state believed would increase traffic counts and, you know, the potential interface between the train and vehicles, yeah, they may require an upgrade.
Thank you.
Right? Anybody else?
Tony, I have one more question.
Yeah.
Is there any way that we could allow some and not allow like a retail store, but allow the micro cultivators, the cultivators, but not the retail?
Yep. We could make that vote after we close the public hearing. You could remove the retail, or you could remove the micro cultivators for that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone else? All right. Oh, Daniel, go ahead.
I apologize. I'm not on the commission, but for those that have noticed, I've been showing up. I petitioned Angus to fill a seat so I could participate in the community quite some time ago, and that hasn't yet to come to fruition. I'm not sure why, but I in response to Fred, he made a very good point. That the general public doesn't have this information. So I've been reading everything that's been put up so I can participate in some degree and learn about how this commission operates. But it's true, I have very little information as to whether or not it would be a vote of yes or no, whether this would be allowed or any establishment, because what has been listed in the papers and put up there is there's a discussion of regulations. And then my understanding of that is that if we didn't come up with regulations, then the licenses are issued by the state. We don't get a say in that, right?
Correct.
And so I think the general public is thinking that this is inevitable, that it's going to happen. It's just up to this commission to decide, you know, good rules and purpose. But now, you know, now that I've attended a few meetings, that, you know, that may not be the case. It sounds like you guys, you can vote just not to do that. But I just want to mention, I don't think the general public has the same perspective on all these things as the commission does with all the information. I mean, exactly what Fred said.
Okay, thank you. All right, anyone else?
Hey, Tony,
Yep.
I'll say something. My brother was not able to connect, but he's here now.
Okay.
Can he still say something?
Yeah, we haven't closed the public hearing, so.
All right, so whenever you have time.
Hi, it's Dave Howard.
Thank
I've heard that you measured the distance from our house down to the industrial park as being 750 feet or so.
Mhm.
Is that's measured from a house and not from the property
Yes.
line, correct?
Correct.
So why would you measure from a house? Because, you know, our land goes, like I said, always down and butts up against the industrial park. So wouldn't you want to measure from the boundary line?
Okay, I'll give you that information if you're after it. It is 144.7. From property line to property line. It doesn't include building setback lines. Or the wetlands buffer that looks like that would be there.
Now, this is to the industrial park and not the Bartlett building?
So that this parcel is excluded from retail because it abuts a residential zone. For just, it'd be 0 if it was a micro cultivator or whatever the building setback line is.
So the 144 feet you just mentioned is measured from our boundary line to where?
So
Blue line.
this parcel to the bottom of the screen would be for retail.
Okay,
So this parcel is 144 feet across. If you don't do retail and you do micro cultivators, this parcel would be included. So that goes from 144 down to 0. You have a common property line.
Tony, may I ask a question while Howard is still
Yeah.
talking?
Yeah.
Who determined that blue line, the 140 feet? Who made that
That's a property
land
line.
setback?
I'm sorry, that's the property line. That's how much frontage that guy owns. So his lot is 144 feet wide.
Okay.
Anyone else? All right. One more time. Says, anybody from the public, the commission, any more questions or comments? If not, looking for a motion to close the public hearing on item B.
I'll make the motion to close the public hearing.
Thank you. Marion, looking for a second.
Second,
Was that you, Mike?
yes.
Thank you. All right, Fred,
Yes,
Alan,
Yes.
Stan,
Yes.
and Alex.
Yes.
All right. On to item C, modification of existing special permit for volume reduction facility transfer station at 400 Commercial Drive. Applicant Eastern Transfer Station. Is there anybody here to go over this a little bit?
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi, good evening. My name is Brenton Elliott. I represent the Eastern Transfer Station, and I'm also here with our engineer, Mark Zessen, from Barton Lojudich. And we are looking to modify the original statement of use from 2005, and then it got modified in 2008. And there were varying wastes that were allowed to be accepted during each of these intervals. And we are at this point trying to get local authorization to make our permit consistent with the DEP permit that we have that had been acquired by our predecessor in 2015. It's relating to the acceptance of municipal solid waste. That you just put up the site plan of the facility. We also submitted a report from Mr. Zessen that lays out, I guess I would call them some responses to some of the concerns that had been articulated to us by your first selectman, particularly as it related to traffic. It should be in your file. And Mr. Zessen is available to answer questions that you may have about our plans in response to your concerns.
Okay. So first off, I'm gonna open this up to the public, and I just closed my participants. So anybody from the public have any questions, comments, concerns? How will this work? All right, anybody from the public?
You have a raised hand, Daniel Smith.
Yep, there we go. Finally got it up. Daniel, go ahead.
Has there been a study as to the increase in the truck traffic? I see it as.
Oh, I'm sorry, hold on one second. Getting some background noise there. Can you try that again, Daniel?
Yeah, so has there been a study into the increase in truck traffic? I see it as a line item. How many big trucks would that mean? What's the change?
The answer to that question is that, yes, there has been a study about truck traffic. And I'll turn that over to Mark Zessen, who's probably better equipped to answer it. But I think just in one sentence, our study has resulted in the conclusion that this would actually lessen truck traffic, not increase it in the surrounding area. But Mark, would you like to address that?
Sure. Mark Zessen here. I'm a licensed engineer in Connecticut with Barton LaJudas. I have been with Barton LaJudas since our former firm merged or sold to Barton LaJudas in 2020. I was with Anchor Engineering for 27 years prior, so I was in front of this commission in 2005, representing Mr. Santa Barbara, who was the original developer of the facility. And so developed the traffic report that was submitted in 2005 and has, was just indicated what's more supported here. I've been working on solid waste facilities since the 1980s. And the simple thing in looking at solid waste facilities, they each have a permit limit. The permit limit, as was referenced earlier, in the state permit, this Department of Energy and Environmental Protection that's issued for this site is 600 tons a day. And so there's two types of trucks, as indicated in what I submitted. Typically, the inbound trucks and the outbound trucks, to keep it simple. To get to the simple in terms of outbound trucks, pretty much all the outbound trucks are going to go out at the maximum payload allowed by the state. And those are typically over-the-road tractor trailers. In terms of the inbound trucks, you would see a typical roll-off truck carrying demolition material, which has been the primary material that's been coming in here for the first 15 years of operation. And those dumpsters, after looking at hundreds and hundreds of truckloads, and I should say that I audit facilities like this about 100 times a year and have done so, meaning I'm on site looking at what's going on all the time. And those dumpsters or roll-off containers typically have payloads of about 5 tons. They vary depending on what the contractors or people who rent the dumpsters put in them. But after looking at literally hundreds and hundreds of trucks, they carry 5 tons. And the trucks that carry MSW, or municipal solid waste, are two types of front load trucks or packers or rear load packers. And both of those, due to the nature of the material, the compressibility of the material, that's why they're called compactor trucks. They carry onboard compactors and they compact the waste between stops. And those trucks typically carry payloads of 8 to 12 trucks, 8 to 12 tons per truck. And we're used 8, and just in that, on many traffic studies for many solid waste facilities, those are the numbers we use: 5 tons on a demo truck and 8 tons on an MSW truck. So the point of it is to get to 600 tons per day. It's going to take fewer trucks to achieve the maximum allowed tonnage at the facility. And so we tabled that up, and looking at the projection developed with the owner, that if it was to go from 600 tons per day of all demo at a max to 280 tons of demo or C and D construction and demo, and 320 tons of MSW, we've projected the total trips. And I should say that typically these facilities are subject to seasonal adjustments, holidays, but also to holiday weeks. The DEP permit requires the permittee to account for the tonnages that they would stay on 4th of July week or Labor Day week or Memorial Day or Christmas, or any other peak day. So those numbers that we projected in terms of the total round trips, in terms of inbound and outbound round trips, we've detailed it, totaling 126 round trips. We broke it out for how many of those are inbound demo, how many are inbound MSW, and then how many are the outbound tractor trailers. Because some people think the same trucks can be used in and out, but it's not really practical, because you have the delivery trucks, the route trucks, and then you have the tractor trailers that are used for outbound. And so we also looked at the ADT, or average daily traffic on Route 80, which is the only real road to get into the industrial park. You take Route 80 to Woodbury to industrial to commercial, the same way people have always come in and out. And traffic really hasn't increased much in the last 17 years on Route 80 either. It's gone up, nominal amount, but it's well within the capacity of a 2-lane bidirectional state highway like this. And there's right next door the quarry, which has grown tremendously since this site was developed. It also has a lot of truck traffic going in and out, and there's not really an issue in terms of the capacity of the highway or the capacity of the intersection. or really, with the neighbors, there's not much traffic on these roads in the vicinity of the facility.
Can I ask you a question, Tony?
Yep, I was just gonna ask Mark a follow-up question to that. So just to
Okay.
make sure I wrote this down right, it's 126 round trips. And you're saying that's a decrease from what's happening now?
Well, what I'm saying is that if it was all demo trucks at that capacity, yeah, it would be higher, because then all the trucks would be coming in with about an average of about 5. And so, it would take into 600, it would take 120 trips just on the inbound side, and about 30 on the outbound. So you'd be up to 150 at capacity with all demo.
Okay, that's, all right. So it's 150 for it at now, and you're bringing it down to 126 because of increased truck size.
Right.
Ability to carry. Okay. All right, Gary Clark, you got your hand up? Gary? All right, we'll come back to him.
Tony,
Yep, there you go.
sorry about that. I was muted.
No worries.
Couple of questions. I was listening to the truck count. So how many of those are going to be household waste?
At the 320 would be 40 inbound with MSW and 16 outbound round trips.
All right. And I mean, I don't live in the area. I know a lot of people that do, and it sounds like a rodent problem has come about since municipal waste has gone in there.
I can say that there's professional exterminators that are employed by the company, and I've been out there, and I don't note. I've seen facilities with rodent problems. I have not seen a rodent problem at this one, nor has my cohort in my office that's typically been doing the audits for this facility. It's certainly the operator has said the same. So I'm not sure where that's coming from.
So could your exterminator go check all the surrounding properties? Because like I said, I know a lot of people in town, and there's a lot of people who have said they've noticed a big rat infestation since municipal waste has been going into that transfer station.
I'm not sure that we can commit at this time to providing pest extermination services for the neighbors. However, we are aware of this concern, and we are committed to addressing it on our property to the best of our abilities. And we're looking into it as much as we can.
All right. So I guess my final question that I'm getting at is, if the rats are not on your property, they're not your problem?
I'm not sure I'm saying that exactly. But what I'm saying is that we are doing our best, and we will continue to do our best to control any kind of rat issue that we see on our property, and we can attribute to our operations.
All right. So I guess your best answer is no answer. I thank you very much for your time.
Right.
Yeah, I'll have to echo Gary's sentiment. In fact, in 37 years of living in Deep River, I only recently started seeing rats on my property. And yeah, it's not on your property, but I suggest you look into how rats reproduce, because once they're out, once they're in an area, they are very prolific. And as far as I'm concerned, that company has brought it in. I was at the early zoning meetings when this went through, and there was no MSW ever mentioned. It was supposed to be recycling. It had a nice clean name to it. And it was, looking at it, it was going to be bulky waste, C&D debris, clean wood, glass, plastic, leaves, tires, scrap metal, and appliances, clean fill. Now we're getting garbage. Let's call it what it is. It's garbage. And it's next to our town park. I frequently drive by the Essex transfer station, and I know that that's not perfume coming out of there.
Right. Fred, I gotta get through the public input, so if you got more,
Okay.
stuff to add, you gotta wait. All right, anybody else from the public? If you raise your hand, if not,
Tony?
just jump in, yes.
So I had just forwarded an email to you. Someone had submitted a piece of testimony via email just about 3 minutes ago.
Okay,
And I forwarded it to you. I also put it, copy into the OneDrive folder. If you want, I can read it unless you want to grab it off your email.
I think you just wanted to torture me with reading tonight, huh? You know what, I'll let you, I can't get it at the moment, it just so happens, so I think this one's on you.
Okay.
How convenient.
All right. So this is a piece of email. For the record, I'm John Guskowski, zoning officer. This is a email that's coming up right now that was submitted to my email, zoning@deepriverct.us. It's from Carol Jones. Hello, I'm writing to address the agenda meeting item regarding modification of special permit for solid waste volume reduction facility transfer station at 400 Commercial Drive, applicant Eastern Transfer Station. I'm a longtime Deep River resident. With the closing of Mira, I feel that allowing this facility to accept household waste would help the town by saving us gas and mileage and allowing us to bring our own town waste there. Of course, that is if they give us a competitive price. So while I'm in favor of this, I would like to see some restrictions on the permit to keep traffic down, heavy trucks off the roads, etc. Only towns contiguous to Deep River should be allowed to utilize it or within a certain radius of Deep River. Thank you for your time and public service. Sincerely, Carol Jones, 30 Reed Street, Deep River.
Right. Thank you. Daniel, you get your hand up, go ahead.
Yeah, I do live on Highway 80 and, we have accidents at that intersection several times a day, it seems. So I'm not sure where Mark had his information overall, but it is a concern with the amount of traffic that we have today. So my question is, just to be clear, are you saying that this will be less trucks than are currently going? Mark?
Saying the authorized number of trucks would be achieved, or the authorized tonnage would be achieved with fewer trips at the maximum. And on so those days that hit the maximum, there would be fewer trucks.
So but that maximum is an increase from what it is today.
I'm just looking at the what's authorized by the state permit right now.
Okay. I mean, what I'm hearing is it's more trucks. That's what I'm hearing.
Anybody else from the public? I don't see anybody, so anybody from the commission? Questions, comments, concerns?
Well, the original proposal was for 200 tons a day, 60,000 tons per year. I think we're talking about considerably more than that. And originally that was supposed to be quote unquote, recyclables, where that was a backdoor in. And then when someone in the town hall dropped the ball, when they went back to the state for their modification of their permit, and no answer apparently, because the town hall didn't answer. So now the decisions made by the planning and zoning at that time are moot. I don't see how that can be. And yes, I've lived here 37 years and never saw a rat until last summer. So things are changing here. My neighbors across the street have been dealing with them. And yeah, it's maybe not on your property, or maybe you don't see it, but they're around and we've never had them here before. And that's a health issue. And it's also right next to our town recreational area.
Just where do you live?
West Elm
I'm
Street.
just confused. Which property are you talking about? Your property? I don't
I'm
know.
on West Elm next to the Deep River Farm.
This isn't gonna work for me.
And I know my neighbor across the street's had rat problems as well.
I got, Daniel, got your hand up again, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to add with Fred. I had the exterminator here today. We got rats that are getting in the house. We bought this place. We've been here almost 10 years and we never had rats until this year. And we're on Route 80.
Rats are very prolific.
So I'm stretching it here. Can you guys see the map I have up on the screen?
No,
All right, I gotta reshare. Give me 1 second.
Mark, where is all this product coming in from?
Yeah, Mr. Ox or Mr. Parati would have to answer that. I can't say where all their customers are. Typically, it takes many stops to fill a truck.
If I may, it's this, this is typically coming from within a 15-mile radius of Deep River, Guilford, Madison, those types of towns. Essex.
Doesn't- Mark is the traffic guru. Does it not make sense to be closer to a Route 95 interchange where that product is going out of state from Deep River, correct? Somebody?
Ultimately, some of it may go to in-state waste energy plants, but I would expect a good part of it will be going out of state, but also being close to the source is also, where this will be consolidated and be going quite a distance, as you mentioned, if it's going out of state in the tractor trailer. So there is efficiency in having the consolidation close to the origin of the material.
So we're having commercial waste come into a residential area to go back out to go to a commercial area. Is that correct?
I would expect that some of this municipal waste will be residentially generated, actually.
I would say most of this waste is residential and going into a commercial area, industrial area, beg your pardon.
Anybody else from the commission?
Did you characterize the change in the mix of waste that's coming into this facility? I mean, you're as I understand, amending a special permit on the basis of a clean waste stream and predominantly recyclables. At this point, we're looking at a modification to allow municipal waste, and as you characterize it, it's primarily generated from residential use, so it's going to be it's not going to be a clean waste. So we're increasing the volume that you're permitted to process here, and we're changing the character of this waste from a clean waste to garbage trash that has significantly more health safety issues associated with it. So I know your amended explanation of use came in quite late to this commission. So I'm having a little bit of trouble trying to understand really what the implications are in the change of your special permit, because it seems like there is the potential for significantly more volume as well as a significantly different content of that waste. Could you characterize what your actual change of use is?
So our change of use is, it would make the town special permit consistent with the DEP permit. And the DEP
I'm not
permit,
asking
I beg your pardon?
about the actual change in use from what you're currently doing and what you originally asked to do and what you will be doing. It's not a matter of alliance of permits, but I want to have a characterization of the actual use that you will be doing at the facility.
The facility will be accepting municipal solid waste which I think everybody seems to understand what that is. And it will be accepting municipal solid waste in an amount of approximately 600 tons per day if you were to make this consistent with what the DEP is allowing us to do.
See, what is your current volume? Not what you do, what's your current volume that your operation handles?
Do you mean in terms of what we're allowed to handle pursuant to one of these permits, or what we're actually handling?
You're actually handling, so that we can understand what the true change of patterns of use is going to be.
Let me take a look. Looks like we're handling around 200 tons per day of both construction and demolition waste and municipal solid waste.
Okay, and so you anticipate going to 600 tons per day, so you're basically tripling the amount. The volume.
I got to ask you a question. I got it before we get lost in these numbers. So you just mentioned that you're right now you're handling 200 tons per day, 200,000 tons per day. And that includes the municipal solid waste that the DEP let you do prior to our getting here. Let's take the municipal solid waste out of that. What were you originally approved for? Because that's what zoning is changing.
600. The original approval by whom though? By which agency?
By this agency, by planning and zoning, because that's who we are.
By planning and zoning, looking at the first permit in 2005, it was 200 and, let's see. 250 tons of recyclable materials.
Okay.
Then in 2008, it went to 350 tons of construction and demolition waste.
Okay.
By
And
whose
so-
authority was that granted?
That's us. So,
Deep River.
so Town of Deep River let you do 250 tons a day. And right now you're processing 200. I'm gonna make sure I get this number right. 200,000 tons? Is that what I heard? Or 2,000 tons?
200 tons per day.
200 tons per day. I'm sorry, that's why I missed. So you're under the allowable at the moment.
Yes, I'd say that's correct. Yes.
Okay, and you're looking to go up to how much? 600 tons per day?
600 is a maximum.
Okay,
I mean, it's a maximum, and as Mark alluded to earlier, this is also encompassing holidays and times where there's heavier flow. I don't know if that's going to be a daily total. I'd be pretty surprised if it was.
okay. I just want to make sure I got my numbers right. Okay, so 350 approved, 200 now, going up to 600. Thank you.
Tony, my question is, who
You
approved
know
the
what, Mr.
350?
Commissioner, I said 250. I meant to say 200. I beg your pardon on the original one.
Okay, Fred, that was us. And the second approval was up to 350 tons.
Okay.
Okay, anyway, sorry to jump in there, but I wrote all this stuff down and I couldn't read my own writing, so I want to get that straight. Anybody else from the commission?
So Brenton, the reality is if you went to maximum on the existing permit of 325 ton and you added another 275, let's be realistic, that most likely is going to be municipal waste garbage. So we'll be going from 325, hypothetically, just demolition material, to another 275 of garbage, or the entire amount could be foregone as 600 tons of garbage per day.
It could be, yes, if I understand what you're saying, it would be 600 tons in the aggregate with both of those types of waste.
But it could, in other words, you could, at that point, if for some god only reason this was approved, let's just call it 50-50, 300 tons of construction materials and 300 tons of household waste. You could at some point say, we don't want any more construction debris. We want 600 tons of just household garbage. And that could come in from anywhere. So I'm kind of uneasy about having upended numbers, especially doubling what we're looking at now.
I suppose, I suppose that's correct. I don't think that's the plan at all, actually, but I suppose in theory, what you say is possible.
So,
Thank you.
Oh,
The original plan was not for
Whatever.
municipal solid waste at all.
guys, so there's too many people jumping around. Can you just throw out your name? Make it a little easier on Nancy when she goes to do the minutes before you jump in. So, sorry to cut you off, Fred, but go ahead.
I say the original plan was not for municipal solid waste at all. And then that started getting slid into the mix, and initially without anybody's permission. And so now they're talking about increasing, and we're supposed to take their word for it. I'm not buying that. You know, just like they don't have a vector problem, as they politely call rats, without knowledge of how rats reproduce. Originally the town was suckered into this under the guise of recycling, and everybody thought that was a wonderful thing.
Marion, you got your hand up?
Oops. Yes, actually, just two informational questions. And one is going to be for John, I believe. But the permit that was online as part of our packages said that it was going to expire in 2018. So is there a more recent permit? That's one question. And number two, in the information or the application, there's a reference to a lawsuit that basically says that planning commissions can regulate buildings and setbacks, et cetera, but it doesn't have the authority to regulate waste. And I want to know if that's the fact or not. Because I just don't, I don't have that background.
Well, to answer your question, there is a statute in Connecticut. It's Connecticut General Statute 22A 208 B. And it has been litigated, actually. I think I cited it in one of my materials that that you referenced. And the statute, to recite it verbatim, says no municipal regulation adopted pursuant to section 8-2 shall have the effect of prohibiting the construction, alteration, or operation of solid waste facilities within the limits of a municipality, which is probably somewhat self-explanatory. However, I mean, we don't want to go there. We want to be good neighbors and good citizens. I'm hearing everyone on the rat issue. And I'm hearing everyone on the truck issue as well. But at the same time, that statute does exist.
So I'm gonna piggyback on two questions. I mean, we are supposed to take care of health, safety, and welfare. And a secondary health, well, I'm gonna back myself up. I do know that you were in front of wetlands. Have you gotten approval from them yet?
The answer is no.
Okay, so just, we can't vote until we have their approval, just to be fair. My second question for you has to deal with health. And I know there's a public water supply in that area. Is there a plan to protect that in some way that we haven't seen yet?
Mark, that's probably one that's more in your purview.
Sure. I'll just quickly address the question regarding the state permit and then go on to the water. The state permit, as was indicated, says it will expire in 2018. The state has an administrative rule people commonly refer to as administrative continuance, which basically says that if you've made a timely renewal application, then you can operate under the current permit, which is the one that was distributed by Mr. Guzkowski, until the state responds to that application. And I can say that there was an owner between the original developer of this and the current owner that was referred to as the predecessors. The predecessor applied for a permit renewal, and the predecessor there's been an application also to transfer to the current operators, and both of those applications are pending. I expect that the state will issue them. I don't have any reason to think they won't, but I can just say that we've had applications that have been pending there for, a half dozen years or longer, and eventually the state addresses them. So that's where this is operating under this permit until the state responds to the application. Now, with respect to the water, the water that comes into the facility and hits the floor is the site plan that was shown earlier. Along the door openings, there are trench drains, as well as a catch basin identified within the building. But the trench drains that are along the door openings go to two different holding tanks, and the water that hits the catch basin itself is essentially acting as a holding tank. And those waters are collected by a vacuum truck and just properly disposed of periodically. The exterior water that actually hits the driveway and parking lot goes through a series of catch basins and an oil, water, and floatables separator device, which is shown on the plans, designed to accommodate the storm water from this facility. I could point those out to you, but they're pretty well represented on the site plan that was shown right at the door openings. If you zoom in there to the door openings, you can see the trench drains are called out, and the holding tanks are called out, and the catch basin interior to the truck loading bay in the middle is also called out. And over to the right-hand side of the driveway by the end of the cul-de-sac is the stormwater treatment device, which removes both floatable material and sediments, which settles at the bottom prior to the discharge. So
I'm gonna follow this. Stan, I see that you got your hand up, but I gotta ask a question about the holding tanks. You said periodically, and so two questions about that. How often is periodically, and how large are they? And is there I guess there's three to this. Do you plan on pumping it out more often now that you're seeking to do household waste?
Right. The size of those is, if you hold on one moment, I'll zoom in here to my copy. And
is it easier if I let you share your screen, and you can input some of this?
I've got it now.
Okay.
The tank to the lower end, the tank is 1,000-gallon tank, and the other tank is a 750-gallon tank. Those are pumped as needed. I'd have to speak to the operator precisely how frequent those are pumped. I would expect, as you're alluding to, that the more frequent pumping would be needed. But at the same time, I can say that I work on many of these facilities, and the only time when there's a lot of flow really is if there's a lot of snow melt that comes in with the loads, typically, or if there's been a real torrential rain when some people's both their own toters at the street or perhaps commercial dumpsters take in a lot of rainfall. But typically there's not a lot of material because of the vast household waste is well documented by the state, and this number is going down because more people are separating their organics. But it's, it varies from house to house depending on how many people live there and everything. But typically it's a low percentage of organic waste or food waste in the order of 10 to 20%. Most of it is still a lot of other things that people put out in their trash. And it's the same for commercial MSW, unless you're talking about commercial trash that comes from restaurants. I mean, which is it. I'm not saying they don't exist, but they're not a huge fraction of all the commercial MSW that comes in. Just like on the food waste, it's a relatively low percentage on residential food waste, which was already indicated that's going to be most of this. But there are more and more people who are, separating the organics, and a good, because there is so much still paper and other porous type of cardboard and other, even though people are technically supposed to recycle that, it's amazing how many people don't. Because I mean, the state has done rather detailed investigations of the composition of trash, and like I said, it's a small fraction of organic material and a large fraction of other stuff that typically absorbs most of the moisture. So by the time it gets here, everything is damp, so to speak, from what was wet waste. But it's not soaking or having free liquids oozing off typically, unless there's, like I said, unless it's a lot of rain or a lot of snow melt. You don't see a lot of free liquids. In terms of the rats, I'm familiar with the life cycle of rats. As I said, I've been working on solid waste facilities since the 80s, and I don't know about the migration population of rats. But while we're talking about it, West Elm is 2 miles away from this facility, so I don't believe, and I don't see rats even migrating to the neighbor, which there's a neighbor right in front of it, and there's woods around it. So I don't see rats migrating from this facility 2 miles away. Personally, I don't. Typically, when you have a rat issue, it's pretty evident at these facilities.
Stan, looks like you got your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I had 2 questions. My first question was about the size of the holding tanks. And then my second question, what is about air pollution and stuff, in household aerosols and stuff like that are getting in there in that building? When I've been to that facility, it's wide open on the one side. And you're backing the trucks up there dumping, but say aerosol cans, any other kind of liquid pollutants, they're getting crushed. How is that being mitigated?
Regarding the tanks, as I mentioned earlier, there's 2 tanks, one 750, one 150 gallons, the other one's 1,000 gallons. Those are indicated on the plans, which one's which. In terms of air pollution, frankly, we do monitor for the demo, and the state requires monitoring of the demo for airborne lead and asbestos. It's never been a problem at this facility. In fact, I can say our firm monitors dozens and dozens of these facilities, and only one time have we ever had an issue that ended up being resolved through the installation of vapor systems and basically air circulation with filters. And so the state and EPA both have monitored waste facilities, and if there's anybody that has exposure to a waste facility, it is the operator of these facilities, the actual people who are there all the time. And so we monitor those for what the state and the EPA, after literally monitoring thousands of facilities, have said that there is a potential for airborne lead or airborne asbestos from demolition. But in terms of other airborne pollutants, there's nobody that I've heard has said that, and I know of no cases where anybody that works at the facilities, either through OSHA or state OSHA or federal OSHA or working with the companies, where there's an issue of airborne pollutants coming in other than those that I just mentioned. And with municipal solid waste, the compaction that the company does, it's not to say that I haven't seen a can ever get crushed, but frankly, those cans aren't supposed to be there, but if they are there, I can't, if the release of something like a hair product, once again, the EPA would say the person most at risk for something like that is the person who's actually spraying it on their head, not somebody who's getting an incidental amount from a facility like this.
I was thinking more of like Raid or, insecticides, or people that use Roundups in the residential areas around here that just throw their stuff away and don't recycle. Or
Well, it's not to say that that could be in any one of the types of containers, recyclables, MSW, or dumpsters. So like I say, I can't say that it never happens, but I have never seen an exposure issue. And once again, the company's own facilities, operators, the people who are they're monitoring it, and they're on the heavy equipment that are there, would be the ones most likely to be exposed to something. And I've never heard of that, somebody being injured due to that. And I myself go to these facilities, as I say, at least 100 times a year, and my knowledge haven't been contaminated by something. I do wear a dust mask if it's very dusty, but typically it's not.
Right. So,
I don't know how to raise my hand here, Tony, because I got a new laptop.
go ahead, Fred. I was gonna ask you a question, but go ahead.
We're told that it's not going to increase traffic. What is this based on? Is there a new traffic study that we're not privy to? Or is this just supposition based on their extrapolation of tonnage and compression, et cetera, et cetera? Because we're talking about literally doubling the size of the capacity of the facility based on, it's not going to be as many trucks. That's my question.
So I'm going to touch on that myself, but I want to get John's opinion on something also. So like I said, without wetlands approval, we can't act.
Well, Tony, just
Yep.
a minor wrinkle. Without wetlands action, you can't
Yes,
act.
action, sorry.
Yep.
So, and John, I was going to ask you, I know these guys mentioned Connecticut General Statutes 208B. Is there any way we can get our attorney to give us, some insight into that?
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to suggest the same thing.
Okay. And my only other question was to piggyback on what Fred said is, is there any way we can get an actual number of trucks? I mean, we've got tonnage, we've got an estimate, if you've said you've done this on quite a few facilities, what is the reduction or the increase? You've seen this change more than we have. So can we get a real numbers?
Just to be clear, the comparison I made earlier was regarding at the maximum capacity.
Mm-hmm.
And so obviously if you're comparing it to a lower maximum capacity, there's going to be a lower number, or as Attorney Elliott said, if on an average operating day, then it's always lower. And to me, if they've been trying to, most people, they're bringing in the number of tons they're bringing in, that's clear, and the company will have a count on the number of heavy trucks. I'm quite sure of it.
Okay, so yeah, if we could get that, if you have a comparable site that would give us number of trucks per day, that'd be great. Marion, go ahead. You have your hand up.
Because I wasn't here and a lot of the other commission members weren't here when this was initially approved, can we hear from someone about what happens? The trucks come in, where they unload, where they get the stuff that they're going to take away, and maybe the manager of the facility, somebody who actually knows what the operation is like on a day-to-day basis.
Well, originally it was never approved for MSW.
I understand that, but
Right.
apparently they're doing it now. So, and just again, the basics of how things come in, how they're separated, how they go out.
I could easily go overview. I've been there many operating days, and like Louis said, many of these facilities. If I could share my screen, it might be a little easier.
Somewhere to stop share. You should be able to share it now.
I get a full screen of you, Tony.
I know.
Right.
That's what I was trying for.
Is that visible to the commission right now?
It says Mark Z has started sharing his screen, but that's as far as I've gotten. There we go.
So you can see that now, Mr. Chairman?
I can. Can everybody else?
Yes.
Yep. Okay, good.
Okay. So starting over here in the cul-de-sac, a truck would come in and proceed onto the scale, which is labeled here, and be weighed, get a full weight. It would come off the scale. If it was to be depositing recyclables, it would pull in and then back up into this area and drop recyclables. If it was full of C and D or MSW, would come over the scale, come over all the way over here, back through openings here where it says volume reduction facility, and deposit the materials on the floor. The empty truck would leave by going out and then come back over the scale, get its empty weight. The state allows for the removal of recyclable material from demo, as was discussed in 2005 when this was permitted. So things like clean wood, cardboard, which is actually quite a bit of construction debris, not so much on the demolition side, but there's a lot of cardboard, everything near the end of a construction project, whether it's windows, doors, other things, appliances often come in cardboard boxes. So loads from the end, near the end of a construction project have a lot of cardboard. There's certainly other things, metal scraps, vinyl scraps. So the state allows the removal of those. And here's an area where processed recyclables are in covered containers, would go over there, may have be scrap metal, scrap cardboard, or clean wood. Municipal solid waste would basically be consolidated in a pile and then reloaded into trucks. This out bay here is the out bay for tractor trailers. So the state does not allow for the sorting of municipal solid waste. You know, most of it's in bags anyways, and it's not really practical to sort it. So that empty tractor trailers would come in, come over the same scale, come over into the truck maneuver area, back a trailer in, and whether it was recyclables or MSW or demo, those would be loaded. On occasionally, a flat trailer can also be top loaded, you know, from the floor. But the most convenient way is to load them in the truck load out bay. But it's often with a high cab excavator, you can also back a tractor trailer through the opening and top load them. Almost all the trucks that are outbound are top loaded. And then those that are fully loaded would come back over the scale and exit. So the traffic patterns are pretty simple. It's a pretty common layout for a commercial facility. And as was indicated earlier, that this side of the building is basically open for free access of trucks, and the remainders are all, sides are all closed and closed.
Are the loading facilities that are open during the day, are they closed at night, or is it open all the time?
This facility is open. It's designed to be open. Many other facilities, I'd say about a quarter of the facilities that we work at actually have doors and door enclosures. This one does not presently have door enclosures.
I have a question then. So can there be, I'm not good with the acronyms here. Can there be trash there overnight?
The state permit requires it to be gone within 48 hours, but there is some allowed overnight.
48 hours is more than overnight.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else? And I mean, like I said, without action by wetlands, we are going to have to continue this. So if you guys have anything you want them to bring back.
So Tony.
Yep.
So I would then, yeah, ask that I will reach out to the attorney to get an opinion on 22A 208, if I'm citing that correctly. And then would ask the applicants to return with a fuller traffic analysis. And you can maybe entertain a motion to continue.
That sounds good to me. It sounds like John made the motion, so. Anyone?
I'll second that.
I can't make a motion.
He can't actually make the motion, I'm sorry.
Motion to
All right, I'll make a
continue.
motion. I'll make the
So-
motion.
So
Thanks, Brad.
gentlemen, so
Yeah.
everyone, just before we adjourn, just so I understand, so you're looking for a traffic study.
Well, I think if I might, and Tony, correct me if I'm
Go ahead.
wrong. I think a lot of the analysis of traffic surrounded the differences in truck traffic between the larger trucks that handle municipal solid waste and the smaller trucks that handle construction waste, and the reduction in the potential increase based on that truck differential, but we weren't really provided with an analysis of current traffic conditions relative to projected conditions with either type of truck at requested capacity.
John, I'm raising my hand as well. I mean, I don't want attorney,
Go ahead,
I
Mike.
want attorney, I don't know if what you're asking Attorney Elliott to provide just a traffic study. If there are other issues that the town feels from a safety and health standpoint, that those would be included in your request to Attorney Elliott.
Could you be more specific, Mike?
Not just the traffic study,
What are you looking
So
for?
what other public health and safety issues?
all of the other issues that have been brought up tonight about, surrounding air pollution, possible ground
Rodents.
contamination, possible infestation of rodents. I don't want his decision to come back to the commission just based upon just traffic.
Right. So in the revised statement that was submitted yesterday or today, a number of those things were addressed. Leachate, dust and litter, and odors and vectors such as rats. That is in, those items are in the revised statement of use.
Okay, I didn't get it.
It's in the OneDrive share file.
All right. Looks like Stan's got his hand up.
Yeah, just one more question. Is there any benefit to this at all to the town of Deep River?
I would say yes, there absolutely is a benefit to the town of Deep River in a very real financial sense. As one of your residents pointed out in the letter that was read earlier, we are facing a real issue on a state basis in terms of what to do with our garbage. And the idea that we are going to be accepting waste from all over Connecticut is just not realistic with the economics of what it takes to cart waste. this is benefiting Deep River, and it's benefiting, your surrounding area to a large extent. And we are trying to actually negotiate with the town of Deep River for a lower, lower hauling rates. So, with Deep River in particular. So I think there's a very real benefit for the town to allow this facility to accept solid waste.
Yeah. The talks with the town, is there any way to move forward with that? I mean, that's a pretty big basis for a thought.
I think we'd like to, sure.
I don't want to speak out of school. I know Angus had requested a proposal, but this particular issue of lack of planning and zoning approval for the additional reception of waste was hanging up the negotiation.
Right.
Well, is there any way we could get a quote as Planning and Zoning Commission to see
Well-
what kind of benefit that would be? I mean, just
That's
just see what kind of
inappropriate.
some idea it is.
Yeah, it's because we only do, health, safety, welfare. We can't really ask financial questions.
Well, it's
I know. You have to go to a selectmen's meeting and harass them. Anyway, Marion, go ahead. You got your hand up.
Oh, I have a question, and again, it's regarding the building and the open area. I guess, is there a way that can be refitted with doors? I mean, if there is a rat problem and you've got open garbage for overnight, and it sounds like at times you do, I mean, that's kind of a welcome invitation. I know rats and mice can go into little tiny spots, but at least it's could be closed. I'm just throwing that out.
I think it's something that we can study. I don't have an answer to that right now without looking into it.
That's why you've got a month to look into it, I guess.
All right. I think Fred's got a motion on the floor to continue this until August 18th of 2022. And
That's correct.
somebody seconded, I think? No? All right.
I did,
Oh, who's I? Sorry.
Mike.
Mike, thank you. So I'm just gonna run through. Alan
Yes.
and Stan. I think Stan, you're still there?
Yes.
Okay. And Alex?
Yes.
All right. Thank you, guys, and we will see you next month. On to item D. Thank you. Text amendment application to revise section 5.2 net buildable lot area, applicant Deep River Planning and Zoning Commission. And we find this in this pile of stuff. So quickly, this is just, our section 5.2 of buildable areas. We've been getting a lot of questions about this. The big one is that if you read through this, so you basically, we'll pick on the R80 zone. If you're in an R80 zone, you have a required lot area of 80,000 square feet, but you also have a buildable area, which you do a reduction based on soils types. And that only uses, which in my opinion is kind of an antiquated way of doing it, but it's the USDA's soil survey. And it gives you, high potential and, medium and low potentials, and you get two different ratings, 100% or 75. This would change the language to allow soil testing by a sanitarian or a certified soil scientist to override these numbers. And sometimes they have been pretty far off. The other thing that was in here that's off a little bit is this one section 5.2.4. The net buildable lot area shall not include any area mapped as a special flood hazard area as shown on flood insurance rate maps, which is what we currently have. The revision would be the net buildable lot area shall not include any area map as a floodway area as shown on the flood insurance rate maps. And the difference is, if you were in a flood zone, you can have insurance. It is a buildable area. Most of the shoreline is a flood hazard area. A floodway, on the other hand, you cannot get insurance and you cannot build it. So, I think that was worded incorrectly. Since we're messing with this section anyway, we should correct that. And then there will be an addition of 5.2.5. Net buildable lot area should not include any area of a right-of-way, conservation restriction, and or areas below the coastal jurisdiction line. That's kind of redundant because if you're you're going to be in a floodway if you're below the coastal jurisdiction. But that is Connecticut general statute, so might as well add it to our regulation. Questions? Sorry to kind of just buzz through that, but
Well done, Tony. I think that's right.
Sounds good.
all right. This is a public hearing, so anybody from audience of citizens, commission members? All right, Dan, go ahead.
Soil testing, am I reading that correct? I'm sorry, it's very small on my screen. That would be the town sanitary. So somebody couldn't just bring in a soil scientist of their own to say, well, my scientist says this. from Mass.
It's actually both. So you would get the town sanitary in there and a certified soil scientist. So you would have to, our sanitarian is the health district, and I could hire, Rich Sonorski or Bob Russo. The three of us would meet out there, and that way it keeps everybody honest.
Yeah, that's all I was asking. Yeah, okay,
Yep.
thanks.
Gary Clark, go ahead.
Just a question about the right of way. I don't quite understand that.
So if let's say there's an easement through your property, for
See it like an Eversource
CLMP,
or
yeah, your neighbors has a right of way, you can't count that because, honestly, you can't take their driveway away, so.
it's not developable function.
Right.
Right, so it comes down to anything that's not developable like that. So any right of way, my neighbors have a right of way to pass and repass on my driveway.
Correct. You couldn't count that as your buildable area because you can't
Net
actually. Yeah,
All right, thank you.
you're welcome. Anyone else? All right, do the 3-time things. Anybody comments, questions, concerns?
I have a question on the 5.2.4 net buildable area. Is there a map?
Sorry, just throw your name out there. I'm sorry. This makes it easy
John
for the. Go ahead.
John Rodat, 362 West Elm. Is there a floodway map?
There is, and hopefully in like a month or so, there's official flood maps, which is, it's kind of quoted, flood insurance rate maps for the town of Deep River, which the current revision is 2013. But they're available online through FEMA. They're available in the town hall. And if our JAS gets up and running in the next month or so, it'll be available there also.
Okay, so they're currently not available?
They are. You can go to, the town hall has them and FEMA has them on their website.
Chairman, if I could add, because I'm near water, when they had all the hurricanes first start coming in, FEMA went and just drew a big circle around any body of water. And so we have a LOMA for our property, and maybe there should be an addendum or something that says that. I guess that's what you're calling a floodway.
Well, no. So a floodway is different. You cannot. Well, if you have a LOMA, you were removed anyway, so you're not in a flood zone, so that doesn't relate.
That's what so that would be. The floodway would be the opposite. It's like
Right.
you're definitely in the
So-
right.
Yes, you can't get it. Go ahead.
To clarify this, the red 424 or 524 will be replacing the black 524, right?
Correct.
So that we should show that in mark out. So that the current black 524 will be eliminated in favor of the red.
Correct. Yeah. So the floodway is the new. It was, in my opinion, worded incorrectly in the black at flood hazard area. All right. Anybody else? Citizens? Members of the commission? All right. Anybody else? And 3rd time? If not, looking for a motion to close the public hearing on item D.
I'll make the motion.
I'll make the motion
Thanks,
Second.
Stan.
to close the public hearing.
Stan beat you to it. That sounds like Mike seconded it.
That's fine.
Okay, Fred,
Yes,
Alan,
Yes.
Marion,
Yes.
and Alex.
Yes.
All right, guys, we're moving along to acceptance of applications. This is item A, text amendment application to revise section 4.23 and 7B17 regarding social clubs, applicant Scandinavian United Society. And this is just to receive this and set a public hearing on August 18th, 2022. Looking for a motion.
Motion to accept the move.
Thanks, Mike. Looking for a second? Anyone?
I'll second.
Thanks, Marion. Fred,
yes,
Alan,
Yes.
Dan,
Yes.
and Alex.
Yes.
Thank you, guys. All right, audience.
quick question on that, Tony. How does that affect the Sobieski Club? Or do they have to, or they have to apply for their own?
Right now.
Yeah, we'll have to
We're
dig
just
into that.
discussing.
We'll have to dig into that at the meeting in August. So, item 5, audience of citizens. Citizens may address the commission on items that are not on the agenda. So if you have something you want to talk to us about, that again is not on the agenda, speak now or forever hold your peace. Going once, going twice, 3 times the charm. All right, guys, item 6, approval of minutes, June 16th, 2022. I'm assuming you all read them. Looking for a motion or changes or?
I'll make a motion to approve. Sorry.
That's twice. I'm gonna give this one to Marion. Mike, I think you're gonna second it.
Yes. Second.
Thanks. Fred,
Yes,
Alan,
Yes.
Stan,
Yes.
and Alex.
Yes.
Thanks, guys. Okay,
Thank you. And that was a lot of writing.
what's that?
I know, I appreciate the fact that these minutes are very comprehensive and there's a lot of content in here. I just wanted to recognize the fact that she picked up all the discussion, and that's not always the case with other commissions.
There you go. Thank you, Nancy.
Yes,
Yes.
very nice.
I agree. She does a really good job with minutes.
Item 7, new business. Item A has been continued, so that is not on there. Item B, text amendment, application, new add definition for cannabis establishment under section 2.4C. Add cannabis establishments to section 4.29 through 431. Districts and scheduled uses as special permit use, and add uses related to standards for cannabis retail stores, cannabis cultivators under section 7B. Additional and special standards specific for uses, applicant Deep River Planning and Zoning Commission. And so, I'm gonna let you guys just go, but if it gets to be too jumpy, we'll switch over to the hand stuff. Quickly, to do this correctly, so we're looking for a motion to approve, somebody to second it, we'll start discussion, and then change, fly, deny, approve, however it goes. Yep.
Can we make a motion as part of that to discuss retail separately from the commercial growers?
Okay, so I'm looking for a
Just
second for
because
that,
it
Marion.
might be cleaner.
I second that.
Okay, so well, there we go. So Marion made the motion, Stan seconded. Anybody got questions, something they want to talk about? Okay,
is there any reason why we just can't vote to say no?
nope. My opinion though is that, I mean, I've stated it before, we have more people saying yes than no. in the public.
Only in those that have been canvassed.
Correct.
So that's also just not the motion on the floor. Right now, the motion on the floor is just to take the growers from the retailers as a separate discussion, right?
Correct, yes. So any discussion on that motion? Thank you, John.
Yeah, so can I start for a second?
Yeah.
So this is kind of like the prohibition of alcohol. It's coming, it's in front of us, it's right here. I have a problem with the retail storefront sales in Deep River. Huge problem. I don't want people walking down the street going to buy their pot and coming down the street, walking down the street. If they're gonna have it delivered from another town that has a storefront that they can deliver to, and they can call and deliver it, that's fine. Smoke it in your own home. I know there are growers that are going to be growing it, and it has to be a supply for the areas. I feel that that can be managed a lot better, but the retail is out for me.
Okay.
I was gonna say, I tend to agree. I think the problem with the retail in Deep River is you're always going to be, at least with the downtown area, close to either a school or a library. That's where people congregate. And even with the other commercial area at the southern end of town, it's such a small area, and it's such it doesn't seem like the use would even be appropriate there as well. And again, because it's more visible and it's kind of close to the beginning of town. And if you do in one commercial area, then you have to do it in that commercial area that I'm dying to change. At the north end of town, which is across from Kirtland Commons. And it doesn't seem like it would be suitable in that area either. So I agree with Stan. I don't have a problem with the growers. I don't think it's really suitable for the small area. We don't have a very large area, and the small area and the type of commercial that we have in the village.
So I gotta back up for a second. So the motion on the floor is to separate the two.
Right, and then we started getting back and forth, so I don't know.
All right,
You want to
so,
just do commercial?
hold on, I'm just gonna ask, because Alan's got his hand up. So Alan, go ahead, unless you want us to continue separating this, and then we'll go about one or the other.
No, I was gonna ask for clarification of what the motion was, because we started talking about commercial and we were asked to separate these things. So we need to stay on topic here if you're gonna
Okay.
change.
Okay, so anybody have comments or concerns about separating the two into two different motions? All right,
Well, I'll say that it sends a message in my mind that it's okay as long as it's not visible. But it's still Deep River, and we've been kind of the dumping ground for a long time for a lot of things. One of them is this trash facility, and I don't think we need to stand for that.
okay. But again, the motion on the floor quickly is, are we gonna separate the two into two different motions? And there's a first and a second. If there's no discussion about that, I'm just gonna ask for roll call so we can separate them, and then we'll work on retail first, or do you want to do commercial first? Marion, you made the motion.
Let's do commercial first. Excuse me, retail first. Sorry.
Retail and then commercial. So the motion is to discuss these two, or vote on these two separately, with retail first, commercial second. And Marion amended her motion, and I believe Stan seconded. You got to re-second for you, unless you're.
Every second.
Okay. Mike, you fine with splitting these two?
Yes.
Fred?
Yeah, I'm fine with splitting them.
Okay,
Against
Alan?
both.
No,
Oh, you don't want to split them? Okay. Stan, Marion, Alex, split them, no split them.
Yeah, let's split them.
Okay. All right, so. All right, looks like that motion passes. So now we have retail discussion. So we're looking for a motion to approve retail only. And this, again, we need a first, a second, then we can discuss this.
I'll die on this one. Let's motion to approve retail.
All right,
I'll second that.
thank you, Alan. So Alex and Alan, all right, discussion on retail use and the regulations that we have in front of us.
Are we approving the regulations or are we approving doing it? I'm confused here.
So, go ahead.
So I think it would be to approve those sections of the proposed regulations that would allow retail recreational cannabis sales in the zones as proposed. That would be special exception in those zones. And is that, Tony, am I correct on that one?
You're correct.
So and
So
again,
how-
this isn't
my question would be, how do we just say no? That
by
we don't
voting
want
against-
marijuana?
by voting against this motion.
Okay,
All right, so.
But that doesn't vote
As a start,
against the use.
as a start, right, as a
That's just
start.
right. That's just a start. So let's get through the discussion part of this and we'll go from there. Anybody concerns, comments, retail use, approving the regulation that we have in front of us, modifications to it?
Yeah, I've got a comment. Call me old fashioned or a bad businessman, but when the profits come from a business have to be used to rectify the use of the problem that's going to be derived from it, I just find something wrong with that. It's like, okay, let's sell guns. We'll take the taxes and we'll give them to the families of the people who get shot. Bad analogy, but you know, we're going along the same route here, guys.
I got the same analogies for plastic, right? I mean, you can recycle it. So they say. Same thing with, beverages. You can take it back for 5 cents.
You know, and again, the poor optics for this town in the past, I don't want to beat a dead horse. We had some racial things here. It happens everywhere in the world. We've got a trash plant that wants to come to a 3,300 resident town. Now we want to put a pot store in town. I mean, Deep River isn't looking like the whole healthy, wholesome town that I thought putting $1 million business in was where it's at. My opinion.
Yep.
Yeah. Unfortunately, this commission is not supposed to be talking about personal opinions. I think that the information that's been provided to us that we've been able to gather suggests that the majority of the population is in favor of this. So we need to address the best way for it to happen.
I don't think,
Challenge
why are we
that
saying the
statement.
majority of the population?
You gotta let him finish.
I haven't finished my thought here. So before you interrupt, let me speak. So if
I'm sorry.
Tony, I guess we go to hands, if you don't mind. We have heard opinion. We've heard individual opinions, but we've also gathered information from the town itself. If the commission thinks that more information needs to be gathered, what should have happened is a proposal for gathering additional information. But we've continued this discussion for several months now. And I haven't seen any report that suggests that there is a different opinion coming from the overall population, maybe individuals. I think the most poignant information that we got was from youth services. And I think that is a very significant concern. And I think there was an admission that there was a high probability that this use is going to exist in town. And they were very clear in identifying some recommendations on how it could be handled. And I think one of the recommendations I would have toward our regulations to that point was that there's no promotion of the use of cannabis that goes along with either the cultivation or the retail. And it goes down to signage, and that it was the recommendation that there's no promotional signage on these storefronts. I think that the identification of this use in the industrial zone was such that there is in fact discretion to this use. That seemed to be the most palatable way to accommodate this use. But it's, again, I think we should be focusing on the means and the appropriate adjacencies and the pattern of use in town, as opposed to individuals stating their opinion as to whether I like it or I don't like it. It's a matter of what's the appropriate pattern of use in town and particular restrictions. So the proximity issues to abutting uses, the proximity to, I think parks was addressed, proximity to residential districts, and probably most importantly is the proximity to other retail commercial uses that might have youth participation. And again, I think the identification of the Turnpike Industrial Zone in particular solves that concern.
I'm raising my hand, Tony. So let's look at it this way. This is not my opinion. I own an inn. I bring $500,000 to the town.
Mike, you know what? I don't care how much money. No,
So
stop.
this is
it.
safe. This is safety.
You cannot keep bringing money into this. It's not what we do.
This is a safety.
It's not a safety issue. Again, it's not a financial issue. If you want to talk health, safety, that's it. You don't get to go, hey, I spent blah, blah, blah. So if you'd like to talk about this without getting flying off the handle, now we're going to raise hands. And you can't just say, I raised my hand. So please put your hand up and I'll, and we can unmute. Marion, go ahead. Give me 1 second. I'm finding you on the list.
Marion, you're muted.
Yep, you got to unmute, Marion. Not letting you do it?
There we go. Okay,
Sorry,
sorry.
didn't follow up.
The typical thing on the bottom just disappeared.
Yeah, I hate that.
This is more just technical. We're looking at the alternative proposal, June 15th, 2022. I
Correct.
think that was the last written one, and it has some red lines. So I just want to say that's really what we are looking at here.
Correct.
And if we want to do any changes to that particular regulation.
I had it on the screen somewhere. Here it is. Okay.
Yes, okay.
All right. Again, if you guys would just, I know this is controversial. I know this is a problem. I get it, but we still have to be civil and we still have to resolve this. And again, it can't be personal and it can't be about money. Mike, if you want to finish your comment, please do so. I didn't mean to cut you off, but you guys can't yell at each other. Like I said, I've never hit the mute all button before, but I think it caused everybody a problem here.
All right.
There you go. I can hear you, Mike.
So
Go ahead.
from a traffic standpoint, Tony,
There you go. Thank you.
we have 44,000 cars a week on Main Street. And it's documented by DOT that 6,000 are speeding. We have a $500,000 police force that doesn't hand out tickets. So we have a problem with the existing traffic flow through town. Now we're going to add 600 to 1,000 cars more a day, according to some statistics that I hit. So, when you say that it's my opinion, it is my opinion because it does affect my business. My business pays $23,000 a year in taxes.
Like, I don't give a shit.
Again, let's stop with this. I don't understand how the youngest person on this committee can understand that a bunch of grown adults arguing about how much money and what their business. Move your business then. Apparently you've never heard of destination cannabis bed and breakfasts. Just knock it off. Just stop. All right? This doesn't concern you. This is not a religious matter. This is not a financial matter. This is simply planning and zoning. That's all. That is literally all this is. This should not be difficult at all.
I mean, Alex, I agree with you, but it's the way people are. We still, again, I don't care what you spent in taxes. I don't. And it's not part of our call in planning and zoning. Alan, you got your hand up. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to reiterate too, this is a regulation that we're passing that will be a special permit. So a individual application will be, we're allowing that to be reviewed on its own merits. And with that application would come potentially a traffic study, because maybe this traffic study suggests that proposed use in town in a potentially the industrial, the Turnpike industrial area right off a highway doesn't bring any traffic into town whatsoever. It might be very modest, it might be a lot, but it's a matter of identifying some parameters that they would need to comply with. And then the merits of an individual application would be reviewed by this Planning and Zoning Commission. But again, I think unless we have an alternative scenario which meets the concerns of the citizenry that have been stated better than the proposed area and the proposed constraints on this particular use, I think that's what we need to identify. If we need to identify some constraints on time of operation for this type of retail as you would a package store, I think that would be worth considering. If it's a matter of a constraint on the, and I'm not sure whether it's in our purview, if this would mitigate concerns, the amount of volume, that might be worth some discussion. Or if there is in fact a better location, that would be worth some discussion. But I think that, again, the merit of this particular location that's in this draft regulation is one that it's not going to be people walking about town. It is, again, we're looking at two locations for these types of uses. I guess I'm not talking about both of them right now, but that are in fact discrete. They're we can handle the regulations pertaining to parking and the parking capacity with such things that it's such that it is a they're providing the parking area right in front of this facility. That again is not going to. We can regulate it in such a way that it's not going to impact other businesses in town, provided we can accept the fact that it's not going to affect the other abutters, other people within the industrial park. I'll leave it at that and let others respond.
So I just wonder real quickly, because I know traffic's a big concern and maybe an option. I know, Alex, I know you have your hand up. Stan, I know you have your hand up. Item B, under the regulation for retail cannabis use, a traffic management plan shall be provided to demonstrate adequate safety for vehicular and pedestrian traffic in response to the site conditions and conditions along adjacent streets. If this motion was to be amended, I would like to add to that, or that a traffic study be part of item B, not just a traffic management plan, but also a traffic study. Alex, go ahead.
I would just like to apologize to the committee and my colleagues here. This is a hot ticket, hot button item. I'd like to thank Alan just for sort of being the voice of reason on this side of it and being very eloquent. So, and also keeping the conversation on track. So I just want to apologize for short-sightedness.
Understood. Stan, go ahead.
So the only retail area is the Turnpike industrial area.
Correct.
So that,
It's on the map somewhere.
do we have any idea what's going on with Chester and what's going on with Essex? I know they're in moratorium, but leaning, because I feel that if it's a retail store at exit 4, a retail exit 6, a retail at exit 3, it defeats the purpose. We're stuck in the middle. We're not going to get anybody but our own people unless we have deals on. I think we could supply the area with micro growers and stuff and limit the retail side of it. And other stores can still deliver to Deep River, the people that can afford to spend the money on it rather than being an immediate source.
So I was going to, and I know a lot of this is, everybody's like, oh, the retail portion of this, you can get it and go home and smoke it. Unfortunately, the law that did pass says I can smoke it out on the sidewalk, which is ridiculous, but apparently you can do that.
I was at the muster and I was standing there and
so
telling it right there.
Yeah, I guess that's, and this doesn't, I guess you can't, this is helpful information. I'm sorry if I'm running on the mouth here. You can also grow your own. So I know a few people are planning on having it in their front yard, which I don't think is very high class, but apparently that's what we're gonna get. Marion, go ahead.
A minute, I'm
There you
muting
go.
myself. Okay, back to cannabis cultivator, cannabis micro cultivator. I thought the gentleman who talked about, let's see, it's
What are we talking
comparing
about?
4 to 5 of the retail store. And so we just say order monitoring and mitigation, but we should add to demonstrate that odors and fumes will be substantially removed from the air prior to being vented from the building. I don't think there'll be fumes, but I don't know. So anyway, I just think that that should be added. And I think somebody said traffic study and amount of the volume. So I agree with that. If we're just talking about the cultivators.
I don't
We're
think we're
only talking about retail right now.
are we?
No, I think what she's going back to the letter that Nancy's brother wrote, where they wanted to make odor monitoring mitigation the same in both zones, which I agree with. If having gone through the Rivercog's presentation on this, so if you are a retail store, they cut it up in the store sometimes, and it does smell. So you do want some smell mitigation. That's the right word. So I agree. I think that if changing the motion to add those 2 things would be fantastic.
And also with what Stan had provided regarding signage, it seemed like all of that was a state regulation, but covered a lot of what we were concerned about, not having any, representations of cannabis on the sign. Again, we're talking here just the micro cultivators, but it may be good to just add no promotional signage. And obviously that's something I agree with Alan, that and the special permit we can address specifically. Remember, if we get 1, it would only be 1 in the entire town.
Correct.
So
No, I'm sorry. I don't mean to jump in on this, Tony. If I'm
Oh, shoot.
So John Guskowski, the state actually at the end of the last legislative session, they actually lifted the municipal cap. So that we had been telling people for nearly a year that towns would only get 1 license per 25,000 residents. The state actually lifted that cap, and the Department of Consumer Protection does not currently have a cap. So there could be multiple.
Okay.
But obviously, if you're limiting it to an area geographically and providing separation distances, that naturally limits the possible universe of facilities.
So, John, you're blindsiding me here. I'm not ready for this one.
I'm sorry, Tony. I thought we talked about that.
No, you might have, but I probably don't remember. If anybody else has something wants to discuss something, I want to take a look at something while we're, anybody else is discussing stuff.
I've got a
St-
question
If I could,
because we-
oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, John, and then Stan, I'll go back to you. Sorry.
Because Stan had asked a question about what Essex and Chester are doing, and as someone who's involved in both of those planning and zoning commissions. Chester is still in the moratorium, and they're scratching their heads. They're probably going to extend their moratorium for a while because they can't quite figure it out. In Essex, they had a subcommittee of planning and zoning to come up with recommendations. They had a 3-member subcommittee, and the 3 members came up with 3 separate proposals that were all mutually incompatible. You know, one was ban it, one was allow medical only, and the third was basically allow retail in certain districts by special exception. So they couldn't all have their proposals. Planning and zoning has debated it for like 3 months, and they will be coming back with a actual proposal that's not too dissimilar from what this one in front of Deep River is, which would be, you know, basically a special exception with very limited geography and very high performance conditions. And we'll see what happens, but that'll go to public hearing probably in September.
Okay, thank you, John.
So, having just learned that, if you were to add to the regulation that separation between retail cannabis facilities is 2,000 feet, if there was one in our Turnpike Industrial Zone, that would eliminate someone from putting another one in the Turnpike Industrial Zone. So we're back to just one. If that helps, and if
Tony,
that would do it.
I'd make the recommendation that we amend the language to include the separation between cannabis facilities to 2,000 feet, if that is in fact the number, because I think that there is a consensus amongst the commission, and I assume from what I've heard from the public is that there is a preference for a limitation. So with that being lifted from the state statute, I think if our regulations included the language that limited the quantity, it would allow us to step into this, you know, in a planned way, and such that we don't become the haven for competing businesses and have the appearance of promoting the use.
I agree.
So I'd offer that as an amendment to whoever has
was Marion
motion.
So that would probably be, well, I don't know if you'd actually don't have a motion on the floor for the whole thing, but Tony, I'd suggest that you would basically add a clause at the end of 7B 34-2, where it says no cannabis retail store shall be located on a parcel abutting a residential zone. And I would just say, nor located within 2,000 feet of another cannabis establishment.
I think before we move forward, we're going to reword this because we've added like 4 different things here. Okay, let's get back into discussion here. Anybody else from the commission?
You know, I keep hearing, Tony, can you hear me?
Hey, I can hear you. Go ahead, Fred.
Okay. I keep hearing mention of the Turnpike Industrial Zone, and, you know, those are pretty high tax paying businesses that they don't even know that this is going on or at this time, most likely, nor are they having a say in it because they have no idea this is occurring. And, you know, years ago, Walter Mislick put a lot of effort into that industrial park and the incubator parks. And without knowing how they feel about having this adjacent to their high value businesses, because what are we going to get out of a pot store in an industrial area? We're going to get some taxes off of some counters and shelving, and the 2% that's got strings tied to it. I think we really got to consider that, you know, not just the way the town looks by having such a facility, but also we got to consider where we're putting it and who their neighbors are going to be. And I don't think that that's necessarily a good thing.
Okay. Alex, go ahead.
Are we now gonna have a discussion about what other businesses in town may or may not want next to them? I mean, again, I feel like we're getting off track here.
So
If these are all super high tax generating businesses, that's it. They're in business to be in business. I do not one iota think they are going to care what goes next to them, but I also don't think it's up to this committee to now continue to just muddy the waters. Who else's opinion that has had now however many months we've continued to push this month after month. It's been in the paper. The overwhelming majority of people that were able to get a hold of the survey for the town said, yeah, go for it. This is Deep River. So without getting into opinion, I think that we're, again, reaching here. All right. Let's just get to a vote. I mean, rather than continuing just to convolute this whole discussion, and now it's 9:15 at night. Guys, let's make a little headway here for the taxpayers of Deep River who we're here to serve.
I agree. Just quickly, I wanted to point out that, let's say this was approved, let's say this is approved. The people that are directly adjacent to this and across the street will be notified because it's a public hearing. That's part of our zoning regulations. So anytime anybody came in with one of these, immediate adjoiners would be notified. It's published in the paper. You have to post a sign out front, and you have certified mailings that go to all those people. Alan, go ahead.
I think I was just going to reiterate some of Alex's comments, but I think it's also if we've got these high functioning businesses in a zone that this new use was going to affect, I have to think that at least one of them would have known and would have come to the meeting to voice their objection that this use is not compatible with other uses within the industrial zone. If in fact it comes at a specific use, again, it'll be addressed the same way as Tony has mentioned, that the abutters will be notified and can voice concerns at that point in time. I think again, our discussions are that not about the tax revenue or otherwise, but that this is a use that a notable constituency within town has indicated they'd like to see in town. Until we can come up with a better scenario, I am in favor of us moving forward, approving this use in the Turnpike Industrial Zone. I know we've asked to separate the discussion of the two aspects of cannabis in town, and one of the reasons I was opposed is that if we're going to limit the proximity of cannabis establishments, it means one will be in the Turnpike Zone, and we have to consider the other site for cultivation.
Good call.
So these are not separable issues, but that's where we stand.
Actually, I think that's a great, I'm glad you picked up on that. So maybe the 2,000 feet, since we're going to amend this motion, is between retail facilities. Good call, Alan. Marion, go ahead.
I was just going to try to clarify. It was my understanding, because we were right now supposedly talking about the growers, that they could either be in the Turnpike Industrial or in the industrial park on Route 80. Is that correct?
That's correct, but we were going to do retail first.
Oh, okay.
No worries.
Sorry, I thought we were doing the other one first.
Nope.
Okay.
So retail first, then we'll get to that one.
Okay.
So I'm going to attempt to re-clarify this motion and then go back through this one more time. Marion, I wrote some of this down, but I just want to make sure it's right. So to amend the motion to approve the regulations put forward to include a 2,000-foot buffer between retail facilities, to include the same language about odor as that we have in the cultivators, and the sign standards that were added to the Dropbox, or I had them somewhere and then I can't get any of my stuff on my screen. Give me 1 second.
Only,
There we go.
I had thought we were talking about the cultivators. So the actual odor section of 7B 34 3C5, which is on that June 15th regulation in red, that's the one I wanted to do in the cannabis cultivar. So I think it's fine the way it is.
Okay.
And I think somebody else added parking and circulation plan there.
Yes.
I think under 7B 34-2, that's where no cannabis retail store shall be located on a parcel abutting, and the original regulation said closer than 100 feet to an R30, R60, or R80. But I think at some meeting, we added residential zone.
Yeah, we changed it. So it now reads, no cannabis retail store shall be located on a parcel abutting a residential zone.
Correct. Okay. And within 200 or 2,000 feet of another retail cannabis facility.
Correct. And the other one was a traffic management plan would include a traffic study.
Yep.
Okay. John, that's convoluted, right?
Was I taking notes on this?
No. Hell, Stan, could you re-second, or if not, somebody else could re-second?
Wait, I thought I just voted to split them, the retail versus the vote.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. You're right. I have this. Somebody seconded, and I thought I wrote it down correctly. It was Alan who seconded. Sorry, Alan.
We were always so close. It was one or the other.
Right.
If you need a second, I can do it.
Re-second with the amendments.
Thank you. Alex, you got your hand up. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I didn't know. So with the 2,000-foot proximity, to sort of hedge against a possible in the future, some other pot shop, getting their way in, can we just put some arbitrary number in there, like 18 miles? I realize that's a little comical, but would it be in the best interest of the committee to just say, hey, just so there's no possibility in the future, why can't we say within, a mile? Or is that just confusing, and do I not have a good grasp of what we're talking about?
I mean, that could be, but my thought is 2,000 feet covers the turnpike industrial. So, I mean, you'd have to come back and change the regulation if this was approved to move outside of turnpike industrial anyway. Steve's got his hand up. Hey, Steve, I thought you were taking the night off.
No, I couldn't help myself.
So I gotta tell you, it gets me every time. So Mike said, if you keep doing this, it means you like the juice. So I got your number now. You must like this. Go ahead.
Just wanted to chime in on that one because I had the same thing come up in Westbrook recently. There was a proposed 5,000-foot separation distance, and I spoke with the town attorney about it, and really we should try to keep it within the intent of zoning, which is really to protect public health and safety, and not really try and delve outside of the box of just trying necessarily explicitly regulating the number of cannabis establishments. And when you get into that territory, that's really where you're headed. The other thing was to keep in mind, if in Deep River there's separation distances for liquor stores or anything like that. I don't know if there is for certain, but kind of in the research that I had done with the attorney in Westbrook was that, 1,500, 2,000 feet is kind of as big as you want to go with this type of thing. And if it limits you to only one in the district, then I think that achieves your goal.
Alan, you got your hand up? Steve, thanks for
Yeah.
coming.
Yeah, Steve just kind of touched on the reference that I'd like to make, which is to liquor stores, package stores. And I might offer an additional amendment, which would be in hours of operation, such that the hours of operation would mirror similar limitations on similar establishments, that being a liquor store. Because the rationale behind that is it means, I think that the limitations on the operation of a liquor store right now are designed such that you're not making last minute and late night purchases on any adult substance, if you will. I think that there are parallels with cannabis, and I think it would be prudent for us to draw on those parallels and make the hours of operation for those establishments similar.
I agree.
But I don't think those hours of operations are in our regulations. I think that it's a state statute, if I'm not mistaken.
So Alan, are you suggesting that you would want the hours of operation to basically track the state package store hours?
That's correct.
Okay.
Really, because of the similarity of this type of retail establishment, the type of product that they sell, which is a adult regulated product, and again, not having expertise with this, I would draw on the something that we could see some similarities to.
Right.
So again, Marion, I would offer that amendment to the language to include hours of operation are to follow the state regulations for sale of what's the right term? Is it alcohol?
It's, yeah, I would say liquor retail.
Liquor retail.
Tony, do you want me to share my screen? I've started doing a little markup here.
Yeah, please. Are you somewhere there's a stop? Are you allowed?
Yeah, all right.
should be allowed
I'm just gonna go ahead and bump you.
That sounds good to me.
All right. So I've started typing this in purple. And so what I've done so far is added the separation distance from one retail to another, 2,000 feet. I just added over here an hours of operation, which shall not exceed the hours of operation that the state of Connecticut has established for liquor retail sales. And I think that's all I had. Marion, did you want this odor monitoring mitigation copied over to the cannabis cultivator and micro cultivator as well?
Yes.
Okay.
And then when you go back to retail, there's a traffic study.
Right.
The traffic management plan? You want to try?
And study.
It's already there.
Conditions adjacent. Oh, yeah, you're right. All right. The wording was just too complicated for me, John. Sorry. Okay. So that's Marion's motion, if everybody agrees.
What exactly is Marion's motion?
It's to approve this purple and red section 7B decimal 34. Yes?
34.
Actually, I have the motion from Alex and seconded by Alan.
Oh,
Yeah.
I thought, all right.
I thought Marion was against retail.
You know what it is?
I think what it was is I originally said I wanted it,
Yeah,
am I muted? Separated, and then I got confused
yeah.
and thought we were talking about cultivators
okay.
first.
Nancy, thank you. I actually have that written down. It's on the other side of my paper. So, Alex, does this fit what Should we just remake the motion at this point?
Maybe just start over. I mean,
Yeah.
All right, you want to withdraw your motion?
Alex, I mean, if you're gonna make the motion to, as John's amended this.
yeah, I mean, I would make the motion. I think everything's good. I think, we've got enough little fail-safe stuff here. I don't see why we can't, kick it around now. I motion,
Thank you. Look for a second.
I'll second this.
All right.
So to be clear, Alex and Alan, that this is a motion to basically approve 7B34 as amended.
Correct.
Okay.
All right.
So my question is, if we do not approve this, then where do we go?
So we'll move on to 7B35 and see how that turns out.
Okay,
But the end game, I mean, the end game, if both of these fail to
Yep.
pass, that means that the town is still in a state of limbo such that it could be, it has no regulations specifically
So
prohibiting.
how do we avoid that limbo?
So then you would need to have another text amendment proposal to outright prohibit the use.
but I thought that we could prohibit it in certain zones. So what I thought that this, if it's retail, it would only be allowed in the industrial turnpike zone.
That's right. And so, but Fred is asking what happens if that vote to approve fails?
Is there a way of stating whether it's an introduction or something that the commission reviewed other zones and found them wanting or lacking appropriateness because of whatever? And so that's why we prohibited it. That's not a very good language right there, but that's what I thought we had discussed previously, that we didn't think it was good in the village retail zone, for instance.
Well, I mean, that's why it's not part of the current proposal. But the way the guidance from the state is barring zoning regulations to the contrary, specifically to the contrary, recreational cannabis retail will be considered a retail user.
So, okay, so what you're saying is we need a specific regulation that says it's prohibited.
Correct. So we'd start, and this is basically exactly what happened in Clinton, where a regulation like this, regulating recreational cannabis retail, basically the same way as package stores, which is special exception with separation distances, was put on the table. It failed, and then the next month they came back with a regulation proposal to ban entirely. So that would be my recommendation for if both of these fail. Okay, so there's a motion on the floor.
Yep. Everybody good with that? All right. If you guys are, you have any more questions? If not, I'm gonna do a roll call vote. All right. Hearing none. So Alex, you made the motion, Alan seconded, Mike Danilo.
Motion,
So you're either gonna, I'm sorry, what we're gonna do is we're either gonna approve this regulation, it's just the cannabis retail section, or you're gonna vote to deny.
Vote to deny.
Okay, so Mike, you're against it. Fred?
Deny.
Okay. Stan?
Deny retail.
And Marion?
Deny retail.
Okay, so regardless of how I vote, that isn't gonna pass. So this, retail cannabis is not approved. Moving on, section 7B35, cannabis cultivators, cannabis yeah. You scrolled too fast, micro cultivators. So since we separated this, we're looking for a motion to approve this amendment to the zoning regulations.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Thank you, Marion. Looking for a second?
I'll second Stan on the
Thank you.
grower.
Okay, thanks, Stan. Okay, any discussion? Anyone?
And that is with all of the purple
Yep.
and all of the red.
Correct.
Do we have, and we have traffic study in there?
Population.
No.
Additional.
Not in this. I mean, this is basically a commercial greenhouse.
Yeah, it's a farm.
Yeah.
It's a covered farm.
Yeah, there's not a lot of trucks that go in and out of these things. The one in Portland, I think they only have, what'd they say, 10 trucks a day at the most, and that was during their heavy time. I expect that's gonna go down.
Okay, and we have security and access and signage, okay.
Okay, anybody else?
Do we? I'm sorry.
No, that's why we're here.
So we have the same problem with this one in that we could get 3 growers.
But again, this is slightly different. I mean, you're not gonna have people standing outside and waiting. This is just.
Oh,
Yeah.
I understand that. I know that in the past, when we had the application for storage facility,
Mhm.
because it's in a zone, that use was not considered a very profitable, I don't know if it was profitable or just a good use for the zone. And only having one kind of limited that problem if you were going to have 10 of them. I don't know if we want to put the 2,000 feet regulation in this one too, just to be a little bit careful. I'm throwing that out.
I'd suggest that we don't, because this is a very different type of industry. And in the cultivation aspect of it, there are benefits to multiple of those businesses because of the R&D, because of the type of research. It's it's not the type of use that has visibility or frontage, but that there is compatibility with multiple users. You need to look at this from the standpoint of it as a industrial use, not a retail use. So there is synergy with multiples, and I don't think it aggregates any sort of potential problems. So
I'm gonna piggyback on that. So if you take a look at we'll pick on 400 Commercial Drive. They own 2 parcels next to each other. That would eliminate them from using both parcels. Stan, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that as well. If they're gonna have multiple buildings, that are separate properties, it's gonna have to do it. So I don't think that limiting it should be effect to this.
I agree.
And there is quite a bit of equipment. I mean, they're gonna have to grab grow lights and everything else, so that there's quite a bit that goes to it.
Anybody else? Questions, comments? All right, we're gonna go one more time. Anybody else have questions or comments on 7B35 cultivators, micro cultivators? If not, I do the roll call. Somewhere I have my list. So Marion, you made the motion. Stan, you seconded it. Mike Danilo.
Yes.
Fred Jordan.
No.
Alan Parody.
yes.
Alex Strobel.
Yes.
Right, and motion passed. On to, thank you guys too, by the way. I know this was a real tough one. Sorry,
Tony,
everybody jumping on everybody's throat.
Tony,
Can
can I
we,
for the, we, both of those for cultivation, is that right? Turnpike Industrial as well as the,
Correct, it was both zones.
So Tony, you would want to now approve basically the remainder of the proposed regulation, which includes all the definition section, 7B, sorry for scrolling, 7B 36, conditional approval. And so basically these regulations as revised, but not including
Excluding it.
34.
Okay, John loves to make these motions. So I'm gonna say so moved, looking for a second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Alan. Gonna run back through these. Mike,
Agree.
Fred,
No.
Stan,
Yes.
Marion,
yes,
and Alex.
Yes.
Thank you, guys. All right, thanks, John, too. On to transfer facility has been continued. Text amendment application to revise section 5.2 net buildable lot area applicant Deep River Planning and Zoning Commission. Looking for a motion to approve that.
I'll make the
motion
motion.
to,
So Stan,
Yeah.
looking for a second.
second,
Thank you, Marion. Trying to share my screen here and everything. Mike
Yes.
and Fred,
Yes.
Alan,
Yes.
and Alex. Right. Nothing from Alex. So I will, oh, I made the motion. So, all right, anyway, motion passes. Sorry, I got too many papers in front of me. On old business. So, Ben Whalen has reached out and wanted to know if we had time. You guys had asked him to bring forward a couple of changes. He was here not last month, but the month before, and you wanted to see alternates. Do you want to see him tonight? We can tell him to come back next month. That's your choice. If you do want to see his stuff tonight, we'd have to make a motion to amend the agenda to include him under old business.
Motion to approve.
Okay. Second?
I'll second that.
Amend,
That was Brett.
you're to amend the agenda to add them to the agenda tonight. Is that the,
That's it. So it's Mike, Fred, Alan?
no,
No? Okay. And Stan?
Yes.
Marion?
yes. If he's here,
He's here. And Alex?
Why not? Yes.
Okay. I'm gonna have Alan take over, because I actually worked on these plans, so I'm gonna mute myself and attempt to share my screen if I can figure this out. Give me a half a minute here. It's not under this one. Too many email addresses.
you're asking me to moderate this discussion then?
I am, if I can
You'll
find,
facilitate with the exhibits.
yeah, give me 30 seconds because I may be ill prepared for this. I thought I had them in the drive and I don't know if I do. Ben, how about this? If you can hear me,
Yeah.
can you send me the email back that I sent you? Or I can let you share your screen if you want to attempt that.
I'm not gonna attempt that. Hold on.
Sorry, guys.
now I guess, can we amend the agenda temporarily or just to make sure that we have an application to prohibit retail cannabis for the next meeting?
I'm
I
sorry?
think have to receive it and then go to public hearing, but
John, is that right? That because it was denied and we approved something else, we have regulations regarding
Yes.
cannabis.
Regarding, you have regulations regarding micro cultivators.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have regulated retail.
You do not have regulated retail.
So we do need
Retail.
another.
You can sell
Yeah.
it right.
We just need to prohibit it.
Okay.
Right. So I would, if Marion, you want to make we probably don't need to come up with a very specific language right now. I mean, it would basically be just like, because we've adopted definitions that includes cannabis retail. So you could make a motion to receive an application to amend the regulations to add recreational cannabis retailers as a prohibited use in all zones. And we would just add that to the zoning table in all zones. And
So-
we could
Sure.
schedule a public hearing for that.
So before we,
sure, yeah. Oh, go ahead.
before we start discussing this, can we ask Mr. Whalen if he wants to wait through all of this? Because I'm not sure we're going to give him the right attention that he's requesting unless these commissioners are willing to continue to meet till, 10:30 or 11. So my concern is that we're not going to give him the attention we just promised him.
That and we're having a sharing issue too.
I don't know, but my wife's out of town and my kids are at the in-laws for this meeting, so I got all night.
Ben, did you send that?
That's,
Yeah, I
that's
did.
kind of sad.
Yeah, I'm stuck with you guys.
I got nothing.
So I don't, to Alan's question, I don't think this is actually a very complicated thing. If, it was clearly the will of the majority of this commission that the town move in a direction of banning the retailers. So all you really
There we
need to do is vote on a motion to set a public hearing for a text amendment that bans retail sales in all zones for the August meeting. We can get that drafted and get it advertised.
Yeah, make the motion to what John just said.
Okay. You guys got that on your screens?
Yes.
Yes.
Alan, it's all you.
We haven't finished the previous one. Are we
Oh.
gonna go through with
Yeah.
that motion?
I'll
second.
second. Okay, whoever.
I'm sorry, what was the motion? How about that? I'm sorry, I was trying to find maps.
So the motion, if I might, Mike, this was your motion. You're the one that made it. That to set a public hearing for the August meeting to consider a text amendment to the zoning regulations that would add a prohibition in all zones for recreational cannabis retail sales.
Perfect. And second,
Was Marion?
Second,
that was Fred?
No, it was
Yep.
Marion originally.
I'm sorry, who seconded?
Mary,
Marion,
think I
Marion
did,
Stay
but
did
we're-
originally.
Okay,
Okay.
so Mike, Marion, Fred, what says you?
I agree.
Alan,
Yes.
Stan,
yes.
and Alex?
Yes.
All right. Thank you, guys. And now it's you, Alan, sorry.
Okay.
And Mr.
So-
Whalen.
As I understand it, Mr. Whalen's coming back with a revised concept plan for informal discussion amongst the commissioners based on comments that were made at the prior meeting. So I will just ask Ben to explain what he's offering and what he's requesting of the commission.
Thank you, Commission. I know you guys have had a long night and I'll try to be as quick as possible. The plan that we're looking at currently is a revision of the plan I showed you at the May meeting. The wetlands have been delineated. To Stan Reinheimer's question, we've added a fire pond on here. I also removed 3 homes to stay out of the wetland review. I do know one just has a little corner, but it was a mistake that will be pulled back down and be out of the wetland review. Again, this is a cottage style development, proposing 8.5 acres of open space that will be abutting current open space to the south, and allowing parking for the public to access that open space. Currently, this is not a subdivision that is in your regulations. But I did to, I believe it was Miriam's request, show what would be allowed as of right. This right here, as of right, is a 5-lot subdivision. And if you look at the purple, all that is required of this as of right is 1.5 acres of open space. The other interesting thing about this is the way the regulations are written. Not only is there the primary home, there would be a secondary home allowed. So there would actually be 2 residents per lot for a total of 10 homes. But if you look at the spreading of the subdivision, you're utilizing almost all of the land. It is allowed as of right, like I said, so this would be something that I could come in right now for a permit on. There is another concept that would be allowed as of right. Right here, this would be affordable housing under 830G of Connecticut statute, because currently we're not meeting our affordable housing percentages. If you notice here, there is no open space requirements here. And again, this is allowed under as of right. It basically, again, doesn't have any set aside for open space and, would be allowed. I'm, again, wanting to work with the commission. I feel that the proposal that I showed provides housing, provides a lot of good open space, provides housing that people are more desiring, which is not big lawns and a lot of care, and is protecting natural resources. And that's basically what I have at this moment.
What happened to the open space from Shirley Weinberg's will?
There is no open space from Shirley Weinberger's will.
Who was that speaking? Just for record. Can I ask who asked the question?
That was iPhone 13 Pro Max. I doubt that's his legal name.
Yeah. It's just for the record, this is not a public hearing. So if we can, just please limit the comments from the commissioners. We were just trying to hear what Mr. Whalen is exploring. And again, the commissioners may want to respond in regard to what we're looking at in terms of housing needs or revisiting our POCD, et cetera. But I just need to remind people it's not a public hearing.
I have a couple of questions, Mr. Whalen. Square footage, it may be on here, but it's kind of small for me to see. The square footage for the cottage and square footage for the affordable housing per unit.
The cottage style, I've done anywhere from 18 to 2,200 square feet. When you go into more of the affordable, you're going to be more in the 18 to 2,000 square feet.
Town maintenance on roads?
So the 2 proposals, this one you see in front of you would be a private lane that there is no maintenance. There is nothing for the town. The affordable, the 5-lot subdivision, currently the way the regs are written, that would be a town road to the cul-de-sac. So that would be on the town for maintenance. And the 830G, that is open for discussion. It doesn't dictate whether it goes town road or private lane. That would be open for discussion.
Another quick question, maybe Alan or Tony's not here. With this cottage style development, can you do the extra residence as well?
No, with the cottage style development, there are no property lines here. This is land in common. Think of it as a condo association, but it is land owned in common. So this is all one piece of land under the ownership of the association, although each person maintains their individual home.
So, Alan, I suppose in theory, there could be one additional accessory unit on the whole thing. I suppose in theory, but
right,
it's a single parcel.
So, John, I just asked for some clarification here too. Since this is not necessarily a development pattern that is allowed in our regulations as of right, we'd be looking, and this is my question, is we'd be looking at establishing a new regulation that allows this pattern of development and would have to identify the context in which this would be acceptable. Is that
right? That's precisely right. That this pattern of development is not allowed at all in any part of town under your current regulations. And so it would need to be a new regulatory scheme, whether it's a planned unit development, or a I know that there was some concerns years ago about floating zone or special development district, but that sort of thing, or it could be under certain circumstances, like if you had 10 acres or more in the R60 or R80, you were eligible, but it would have to be envisioned, written, and fit into the regulations somewhere as a new set of rules.
right? And that seems to me what's happening here is that this pattern of development would be appropriate for a certain size lot that would afford a fairly significant amount of open space. It seems to me that's the pattern of development is going here, and perhaps also the type of housing, because we're not talking about or what we're seeing here are not large houses that you'd see in a gated community. It appears to be bordering on kind of a lower end of market rate, affordable type housing. But maybe I'm just looking at this from the pattern, and it suggests that might meet some needs in town.
I have a question. I hope somebody can help me out on this. Isn't this sort of like what they did out on the bottom end of Kelsey Hill? That extends out there, out by Scott's Orchard. Wasn't that a development? Because I remember years ago it was just all open land, and then a road got put in, and then all the, that's all houses all the way down to the other side of the pond there.
That's right.
Yeah, that's all. I think those are all conforming lots.
So those are separate lots. Those are not one
development.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's sort of the same type of layout, but I guess that they meet their requirement per house or whatever to not be considered what this is.
Right. This to me looks like it's a densification pattern, and essentially transferring some of the, it's not a transfer development, right? Because we're getting a higher quantity of units on the parcel than you would get as of right, but it is a denser pattern of development.
And you get more open space.
It's
Because
really
of that.
not, it's sort of a cluster subdivision, but really as a condo and, you know, a little bit more dense.
These are essentially townhouses. This is what, you know, the majority of people, the younger generation, are moving to. I mean, he was absolutely correct when he said that. But you see this essentially everywhere, you know, not in deep Connecticut, but this type of smaller housing and small yards. I mean, that's what I think society is moving towards.
Yep. It's not just the starter homes, it's finish homes as well. I mean, it's a mirror kind of a retirement or community as well with the downsizing. So it's a first home, last home scenario is what it looks like to me.
Mhm.
And then part of the question is that something we want in the rural areas of Deep River? Is that best suited in the, you know, closer to our central business district?
But that space would obviously be. Is this area a different area than, you know, village district? What do we consider this area of town?
Well, so this specific, I mean, again, this is not an active proposal. This is not an application, nor is this an application for text amendment. But what Ben is showing you is his property out on Winthrop Road, which is in the R80. It's a rural residential development area.
So it's in a low density area and it's proposing a high density type development.
Actually, Mr. Chairman, if I may speak, currently to the east over by Star Lake, there is already a development of this sort that went in the 60s on Star Lake that are tight cottages. And then also, if you go to the southeast corner of this property and the other side of the open space, that was a POCD that went in the 90s, which are smaller lots than the R80, and that's how that open space came in here. So there has been some of these types of developments that have been going in, and this is sort of the next generation of these types.
I think, if I'm not mistaken, the other developments of this style were prior to our zoning regulations, correct? So
Star Lake was, I think, in the 60s, and the one where the Deep River Land Trust was in the 90s.
In the 90s, okay.
Yes.
Go ahead, Stan.
So I had asked this question of Steve last time we had talked with you, Ben, about if it were a 55 plus elderly housing, would it be conforming with this breakdown?
Stan, I looked at that, and that regulation is incredibly confusing to get through. And one of the big issues are the setbacks that occur with that it was making it very difficult to sort of maneuver the regulation.
No, I'm not saying that you should have this set. What I'm saying is it's more clustered into the fact that it could be. I don't even know what I'm asking.
So if I understand correctly, if that was sort of tuned up and cleaned up, it sort of falls under the same style of development.
Exactly. That's what I'm asking. If we can.
Yes.
Alan, if I may, can you bring up the 830G shot?
Right.
Thank you.
Here we go.
So Ben, given the 10% ratio formula for Deep River, this could go in, correct?
Yes, that we do not meet the affordable housing 10%. This could go in.
So you could pull a permit on this with the state, and we would have no ability not to.
It would come through planning and zoning, but if it was filed under an 830G, because the town does not meet the 10%, you don't have to approve it, but it will go in that direction.
Well, they would have to verify that it met public health, safety, and welfare.
Correct.
So all the septic systems, all the wells, all the traffic flow, building design, all of that stuff. And the affordability plan that would need to be filed. That would all, yeah, but it would go through planning and zoning. But the state has put their thumb on the scale about that.
The square footage we're similar to this in the cottage style. Would the cost per unit be similar?
No, this would be probably because you need the more units because you're going to be more set towards the 70% of median income has to afford it. The cost will be lower, and that's why you get more units to make up for that.
Ballpark, if you had to do your math, what would the cost of this per unit be on this? Ballpark.
You know, I don't want to speak to 100%, but it's definitely going to open it up to you know, the 200 to 250 mark, somewhere around there per unit.
Thank you.
And just to be clear, for the affordable development, depending on whether or not these were rental or sale units, the affordable, the build quality of the affordable units would have to be essentially identical to the build quality of the market rate units. So it's not like you could build 30%, you know, kind of sheds and 70% Taj Mahals. It needs to be compatible.
If I did go for this route, it would just be affordable all the way through. It just makes it much easier if you are doing it. From my experience, it's just you make it one consistent thing all the way through. Whether you rent them or own them, it's just affordable all the way through under that criteria.
The town needs that.
I was going to say, I kind of like the concept of the other one because I like the saving of the open space. It's just developing a regulation.
Yeah.
That gives us a little bit of flexibility as well.
I think that the question, and I spoken to Ben earlier in the week. I think so. Obviously, last time he had come to you. I think Marion and Alan and some others had some questions, and Ben has worked to sort of answer those questions about how things would lay out. The question going forward is again that this would require a text amendment. The commission should probably provide some feedback on whether or not this is something that they as a commission are willing to either entertain as an application or take on as a project for drafting these regulations. And then there's the question of time frame.
And once that text amendment is made, that sets a precedence for future developments. Is that correct?
Well, so what the text amendment would do is it would create the category of development type. It would create the possibility that a project like we are seeing on the screen could be possible under certain circumstances on certain properties in town. It doesn't approve anything. It just creates, you know, basically like we just passed a regulation this evening that allowed for the potential for cannabis microcultivators, right? That doesn't, you know, that doesn't approve any particular application on any particular property. It just creates the possibility of some future development. Similar, a regulation would have to be developed to allow something that looked sort of like this to happen on a parcel somewhere, sometime in the future. And I think that the question is, and Ben, correct me if I'm wrong, you know, is this something that the commission is interested in to take on as a project, or would be willing to hear and receive as a third-party text amendment proposal?
Yeah, I'm sort of looking that route, and also I'm working to work looking to work with the commission for suggestions and ideas. Obviously, I want this to fit for everybody. I do see it as being in this, it's sort of the new way of building that we're seeing everywhere. And we need housing stock up here. I mean, we don't offer housing stock.
Personally, I'm kind of intrigued by this, and I think this is the type of thing that the commission should be tackling, because it has the potential to offer needed housing stock, and not just in quantity, but the character of this housing, and because the scale of it is entry-level housing or senior housing, or again meets a price point that makes it affordable to the demographic in Deep River. I think that towns like Deep River have the potential to move in a direction of, large houses on relatively large lots that become to some extent exclusionary to the character of the overall town. If I look at this from the standpoint of wanting to see the business prosper in Deep River, which is not just the retail, but the commercial and the industrial, we need to have housing stock that reflects that. Similarly, I'd like to, I think we need housing stock that retains our population. Not a personal issue. I'm not ready to downsize yet. I'm just saying that it's important to be able to keep our population in town as they age and want to downsize. I'm not saying that this solves those issues, but I think that this model, as it's been presented, has the opportunity to address a lot of the things the commission needs to address. So personally, I'm kind of in favor of at least studying this further to see what those regulations might look like. And it might be part and parcel of our plan of conservation development, so we can explore the types of housing, patterns of development, as well as patterns of open space that that the residents of Deep River are looking towards in the near and long-term future of Deep River. That's my personal opinion.
Mr. Chairman, Alan, may I?
Sure.
So that was, you actually brought up the point that I was hoping to mention as well, is that a zoning amendment, a text amendment of this significance that would allow for a significantly higher density in a rural residential district such as R80 is really not currently supported by the current plan of conservation and development. There's a reason that, the majority of the Winthrop area is zoned R80 is because the previous plans designated that as a rural residential area, low density. That said, we do have a new affordable housing plan that was adopted at the end of May that identified that the town does need more residential options, does need to make residential development easier in a number of ways. And we are at the beginning of a process of updating the plan of conservation and development. We had that conversation a couple of months ago about changing the boundaries and requirements and allowed uses in the village mixed use versus village commercial versus village residential, and decided to sort of punt that until we had a complete new plan of conservation and development. And so, these big picture decisions on zoning issues might be better paused until we have sort of a comprehensive master plan of what we want the town to be, and then take up some of these issues to actually implement that.
Yeah, it's just, to my understanding, as regulations are set It's for stuff that doesn't change so that neighbors are in that area. There are people that like the R80 area that's more open, less density. There's people that R30, a little more houses closer together. And then there's people who live on top of each other in town. If we mix it all together, you lose the aspect of both sides. That's why we have regulations set so that people have a property, it's set in that direction. They know how things are going to be regulated around them. If we go and change the regulations to fit something in, you're going to be stepping on a lot of toes of the people that are there already. I do like this plan because, in my opinion, you are half of the property. You're not affecting the people on the one side, but the other side, they're going to have a lot of houses next to them.
And Stan, I understand exactly what you're saying. I guess the danger is an 830G would develop everything. That's, you know, and that's not my intent. I like the open space setback, but it is vulnerable even out in Winthrop right now. That's the point. That, you know, this gives the commission some control over the situation and a good alternative.
Yeah, but if these pop up, if we go change the regulations and then these pop up every third lot in the R80 zone, it's not R80 anymore.
I mean, if I may, just to play devil's advocate, I think the point of regulation and whatnot is for over time they change. I mean, sure, people that moved out to R80 50 years ago, sure, they thought they were going to have a farm, this, that, the third, but we also cannot just completely disregard the fact that society as a whole is changing. What people want, what types of communities they want, it's all changing. So R80 is right now a place that people can move to a starter home relatively cheap. So the blanket statement that everybody out there wants a farm with horses and woods, that may not be true. And I don't think it's up to the commission to sort of pigeonhole the people that are living out there into that kind of thought process. But
Yeah,
also,
but it's not just people. I paid a premium to be on a private lake. He wants to put 16 houses right in my backyard. I look at that ridge. It's visible from Route 80. He'll take down that whole ridge. I know it's not public hearing, but he's not telling the whole story. It's very misleading. It's very, very frustrating.
well, I sir,
Just for the record, again, that was a comment by not a member of the commission for the minutes. This is not a public hearing. Stan, you're muted. Alex, oh,
Yeah, if you're going to speak, just unmute yourself.
so
Marion.
Marion has her hand up.
Oh, yeah. I was just gonna say, again, I kind of like the concept because it involves open space, but I hear what people are saying in terms of zoning. But R80 can also be very wasteful in terms of space.
Yeah, but
And the other problem, I think we do have to look at it, but we have to look at it thoughtfully. And it may be for parcels over 20 acres or whatever. And I think it's really hard to comment right now, because it's been a long night, without kind of looking at the area as a whole. And so I guess I go back to John and Alan to some extent of, we need to do this but we need to do it in a thoughtful way. Now, if you would like to propose a regulation more informally versus an application that we have to respond to. I think the problem is if we have to respond to it, the time frame gets very tight, and it's not as thoughtful, I think, as we want to be with some of these things.
Alex, I see your hand up. I just want to respond to Marion real quick, if I may, and also the comment from the public. I don't want the public to think that we're entertaining a proposal at this point. We've been asked to entertain this conceptually, and as John mentioned, as Marion is kind of reinforcing, we kind of need to look at this as a larger planning exercise, see how it fits with all of our other needs, and really approach this holistically. And I think that's why John initially said, or suggested, do we want to take this on as a project? This is a significant project. It's a significant undertaking because it's a change in the pattern of use, and it's very significant zones within Deep River. So again, that being said, I'll go back to the list. Alex, your hand is up. Stan, I see yours as well. Let's see if anybody else.
No, I think
I'm
that
down, actually.
Go ahead, Alex.
I think that sums it up perfectly. I mean, this is at face value, it's a kind of an off the record just conversation. This is not about opinion. It's not about public anything yet. But I do think that part of the commission's duty to the town is advancement. And this falls under advancement. Whether or not you like it or know somebody that likes it or not, or whatever, I think we owe it to the town, but also it's a good exercise, as you had said, Alan, to go through it, see what this really looks like, not just as some plans on a computer screen, but see if there's, I realize the committee isn't here for, added value to the town. We have a regulations to stay within, but, can the infrastructure even handle it? Just off the top of my head, what happens if there's a fire department call out there? I mean, that is the other end of town. So I think that before everybody gets ahead of themselves, there is so much stuff that we would have to think about and talk about and look at before even putting any pen to paper on this. But, I think this is part of our job, and it's good. This is good stuff.
Agreed. Stan?
Yeah, I agree. I do like this. I like this a lot. And my point is that you're going to piss off half the people around you. The affordable housing, everybody's going to be. That's what people come up everywhere across the whole country. If people don't get what they want, they throw in the affordable housing. And then that gets voted down. They go back to, that's how it works. But I do like this, and I think we need to move forward on our conservation development and our POCD and kind of figure out that and then incorporate something like this in. I know it's always been as of right subdivision in Rule 8 in R80, but I do like this.
Okay. Do we have any other comments from the commissioners? All right, Ben, I'd like to thank you for bringing this to the commission, especially informally. I think it's very provocative. I think that there's going to be a need for a lot of public input on this type of development, but I think we recognize that this is certainly a pattern and a direction that towns have gone in, and I think it's necessary for us to start considering it. So we've got some work ahead of us, and I think we've got a lot of listening to do as well. So I'll let you have the floor for a minute if you want to have any other closing comments.
Well, I thank the commission for your time this late on a night like this. And again, my intent is to work with the commission and make something that works for everybody. That's, you know, good for everybody. And that's why I did show the different scenarios here. And if it's okay with the commission, I'd like to be engaged in the conversations to make this work and have a give and take to make something that works well for the community. And with that, I'll thank you again.
Okay, thank you very much. Tony, if you don't mind, I'll turn it back to you.
You make a good chair, Alan. I mean, you're next on the list, just so you know.
Hold my tongue.
All right, so on to item 9, reports, zoning enforcement officer.
Well, I don't want to take up too much more time. I would note, because we've just been talking about the plan of conservation and development and related issues. I believe that the town budget passed with some funds available for starting our plan of conservation and development process. I would look to, I mean, boy, August is going to be a beast of a meeting. But I would maybe, and actually I would also note that we're not actually technically under contract yet. I think Angus is still reviewing. So perhaps we could put on the August agenda the establishment of an ad hoc committee to start the process of updating the plan of conservation and development for the August meeting. The other thing I would note is that we've had a number of concerned citizens, maybe complaints about the transfer, the sale and reuse of the former Deep River Farms property on East Elm Street, on West Elm Street rather, which is was sort of discontinued agricultural uses, although they're, I guess, haying the property, but continuing the farm stand that also sells coffee, and I guess under the new ownership principally sells coffee and doesn't do a lot of farm stand type stuff, which Steve Natick and I have determined is not a there basically needs to be a nexus between the farming use and the farm stand, and essentially what it's become is a Starbucks plopped in the middle of a hayfield. And so we've been going back and forth with the owners of that, the new owners of the property. And Steve and I have determined that it is probably currently a stretch to say that it is agriculturally related. But if it is to be agriculturally related, and the owners of the new owners of the farm have said that they are ramping up their agricultural operations as we speak, that I think it is probably appropriate to have them come in for an agribusiness, agritourism activity category, which is a special exception for farm-related uses, so that they can convince the commission that their farm stand, their current farm stand, which is basically a coffee shop at this point, is properly related to the agricultural use of the former Deep River Farms. So all this is by way of saying I would look for some concurrence from the commission that we would request that the new owners of the Deep River Farms property come in and talk about their plans for agribusiness, agritourism as relates to the farm and the existing farm stand, which is a coffee shop.
Yeah. Question for you there. What kind of time period are you looking at? I mean, I know what it's like to start a farm, and it takes a little time, and there's certain times they have to file for your PA 490 and stuff like that in October. So what kind of time frame are you looking at for?
Right. So we're not looking to come down with the the hammer of Thor on these guys and boarding this up with the state police and all that stuff. But the intent of the agribusiness, agritourism regulations is to allow people who own agricultural land to see some retail element of that. And my understanding is, as of now, they do sell some garlic scapes. They do sell, they are haying the property, but the retail end is basically coffee and breakfast sandwiches. And unless there is some reasonable nexus between the agricultural operation and the retail operation, that's not what the regulation intended. Again, we're not shutting them down with the militia. So I would suggest that giving them the opportunity to present their time frame, present their plans to the commission might be a way to work through this.
John, I think it's a good recommendation, especially if they came in and expressed their intent and acknowledged the the agri component of it, or the farming component of it, to at least let it, walk like a duck. I think it's important for them to come in, and I think that would be certainly a reason for us to give them a reasonable time period. And I'm not sure what that is, what it takes to, especially get the, whether it's permitting or certification or whatever is necessary to demonstrate that you are in fact a, functional agricultural or farming entity. But I think it'd be very beneficial to have that discussion with the commission.
Yeah, thanks, Alan. Yeah, I again, we definitely want to be friendly to agricultural operations and obviously there was a history of Deep River Farms having used this property to sell coffee and breakfast sandwiches and things like that, in addition to produce from their farming operation. And so we don't want to foreclose that entirely, but there needs to be a greater plan, and that's what the regulations call for.
Just, is there a quick answer to what if they don't? Like, what if they give us a plan, but then, they realize that they have no aspirations of actually using the land for its intended purpose, or its, I would say, what it's zoned for its intended purpose? Then what happens? Because I think the last thing that we need kind of an out, because we also, as a town, shouldn't really just have that property sitting vacant either when nobody wants to.
Yeah, I mean, the hope is that the value of that property is not just the fact that they have a coffee shop.
Of course, yeah, we would hope.
But that we were. Yeah, I mean, well, it's basically the agritourism, agribusiness regulations are quite clear that this is intended to be a retail component that's in support of the agricultural use. And if they can't, and again, Steve and I are not, looking to shatter the doors and the windows tomorrow, but there needs to be some sort of nexus between the agricultural use and the retail use, and which is why, frankly, that I'm bringing this up, and because it's a special permit, special exception thing. The commission needs to kind of weigh that, and I mean, the answer might be, if their intent is really just to hay the fields and to sell a bunch of coffee, maybe that's not what the town wants at this location, and that's not really what the town wrote its agribusiness, agritourism regulations to support.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. It's just, I guess I was just asking, what is a contingency plan for what could very well be the outcome of this?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's, this is, to a certain extent, my bringing this up and my including the Planning and Zoning Commission in this discussion is, to a certain extent, a little bit of a contingency plan, because the world of zoning enforcement is more black and white than it's gray. It's, there are regs, right? But this is a special exception category, so there is some negotiation. The contingency is you can't do this unless it's, you know, a significantly agricultural operation.
Well, I like what you had said. There is a bargaining sort of aspect because it is kind of a special agro tourism permit or zoning.
Right.
I think John, I think by definition, it's an exception. And so in order to continue, you have to adhere to the rules by which that exception was granted. Otherwise, that exception is void. So I think it's pretty clear that I think it sounds like you expressed to them that this will not be permitted unless there's a demonstration of a plan to move in the direction of kind of restoring some farm component of it.
Right. And they have expressed that, you know, informally. I haven't gotten any formal response from our letter to them, but yeah, that's the hope. And you know, insofar as I'm concerned, if we can help them move in that direction, win-win.
What is the time frame on that?
That's the question.
Well, that's what I'm saying, no time frame, because right now we're done with the growing season pretty much. So it's going to be next spring before anything get planted and harvested.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think we need to have some allowances for the fact that most agriculture, you know, dairy aside, is a fairly seasonal thing.
Well, I think the last place just sold pumpkins for most of it for this whole. I mean, we're not having a discussion now. I understand whether we're going to let this place continue, but it's nice to know that there is some wiggle room for all parties involved.
I mean, yes. Having worked in rural planning for over 20 years now, like agriculture is a slippery thing. Like it's you know, you could grow 6 pumpkins and have, you know, $100 million of wedding venue revenue. It's a tricky thing.
I think you're on the right path, but I'd suggest to try to get them into the next meeting just to start this discussion and understand the intent and establish some expectations.
Thank you. That would be my.
I think the owner was here earlier.
Yeah, I think he was. John Rada is the new owner, or among the new owners. Yeah.
All right. So, John, is that everything you got?
That's all I'm going to share right now.
All right. I think that's wise. Attorney, I haven't seen anything. I'm assuming John would have mentioned it. Engineer.
Yeah, just that there's a bill.
Yep, that's on there. Engineer, nothing. Chairman, I got nothing for you. I don't want to drag this on any longer than we need to. Budget, we just talked about. You know, John's going to get his contract signed, or he's not going to show up at our next meeting. Payment of bills. Need a motion to pay Halloran and Sage $320. I'm assuming John's going to give us a reason why we have to pay this.
Oh, good question. I think I put the invoice in there.
It's in there, but it didn't say exactly what
it did. The second or third page told me. It was. This is related to the proposed subdivision up on Cedar Lake. Our favorite applicant.
Okay.
Who kept resubmitting the same application,
Yes,
and we needed advice about whether we could just basically deny if the application had significantly changed.
Yes. Okay. I know who you're talking about. I can't remember who it is either. But he sold. So.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that was what that was about.
Okay. We did the site walk there in the wintertime, if that helps anybody. It was down the long driveway.
Yeah, so it was his house that sold and not the middle house, right?
Yes, he sold the whole thing.
His house. He owned that the 2 pieces that were on either side of the middle house.
Right.
Yeah.
Motion to pay the bill.
Who jumped in there?
Alan.
Alan, thank you. Looking for a second.
I'll second it, Stan.
Thank you, Stan. Mike?
Hey.
Fred?
Pay your bills.
Marion?
Yep.
Alex?
Yes.
Thank you, guys. And with that, looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Marion. Look for a second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Stan. And all in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Guys, thank you. And I don't mean to have you hang on for any longer, but we got through something tough. I appreciate everybody's patience. I know it got a little heated there, but again, thank you guys. And I'll see you next month.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
You guys have a good night.
How do we leave? Leave.